Midsummer, 1957. Li Qingshan came to with a splitting headache and found himself lying in the bed of Wang Naixiang, the pretty young widow of Stone Creek Village. She was passed out beside him, just as drunk as he'd been. Someone had deliberately torn her clothes into a mess. Outside the courtyard gate, Zhao Guwei and his wife were leading a crowd of villagers straight toward them, ready to catch him in the act. The second that door swung open, Li Qingshan would either lose his family's house or wear a stain on his name that no amount of scrubbing could ever wash out. But Zhao Guwei had no idea that the 18-year-old good-for-nothing lying in that bed wasn't the same kid anymore. The soul inside him had already lived a full lifetime. The mud brick house was low and stuffy, thick with the smell of liquor and packed earth. The familiarity of it made Li Qingshan's scalp crawl. He remembered this day, and he remembered exactly what came next. Outside, the sun scorched everything in sight. The crops in the fields curled up in the heat, and cicadas screamed from one end of the village to the other. When Zhao Guwei and his wife had half carried him inside, they'd kept up the friendly act. Qingshan's had too much to drink. Let him sleep it off here at Andy's place. The moment the door shut, all that fake concern vanished. They dumped him next to the bed, quickly checked Wang Naixiang's torn clothes, and started muttering about hurrying off to round up witnesses. Zhao Guwei was already daydreaming about the Li family's brand-new courtyard falling into his hands. Sell the place, and the money would cover his son Zhao Chang's debts nicely. Li Qingshan kept his eyes shut the whole time, never letting them realize he was awake. Only when their footsteps faded did he finally confirm it. The memories in his head weren't some drunken dream. The rickety wooden bed, the water basin in the corner, that single shaft of sunlight cutting through the paper window, all of it identical to decades ago. In his last life, Zhao Guwei's youngest, Zhao Chang, had racked up 36 yuan in gambling debt. To plug that hole, Zhao Guwei and his wife had set their sights on the Li family's newly built courtyard. Their plan was simple: get Li Qingshan blackout drunk, dump him in the bed of their daughter-in-law Wang Naixiang, then storm in with the villagers and play the victim. Pin it on Li Qingshan. Say he'd forced himself on Wang Naixiang, and they could squeeze the Li family for the house as compensation. Zhao Guwei only dared try this because Li Qingshan's reputation back then was garbage. An 18-year-old who wouldn't touch farm work, who just loafed around the village all day. Behind his back, everyone called him a deadbeat. If it came down to his word against theirs, most people would side against him on instinct. And even if Wang Naixiang swore nothing had happened, a single man and a widow caught together in one bed, the rumors alone would be enough to bury them both. But Wang Naixiang hadn't played along. When she came to, she stood up and cleared his name, and made enemies of her in-laws in the process. For the next month, she didn't just endure the whole village's whispers. She took beatings and abuse from the Zhao family every single day. Zhao Guwei had even planned to hand her over to the debt collector, Li Hu, as payment. In the end, with nowhere left to turn, she threw herself into the river. The day before she died, Wang Naixiang had come to Li Qingshan and begged him to take her away from Stone Creek Village. But that Li Qingshan had been a coward, spineless, gutless, and he hadn't dared say yes. Only after she walked away in despair did he understand what he'd let slip through his fingers. Take me with you in the next life. Those words became a knot in his chest that he couldn't untie for the next 40 years. After Wang Naixiang's death, the Zhao family's harassment and the village gossip made it impossible for Li Qingshan to stay. He left home for good. Later, by sheer luck, he took an old Taoist as his master and learned Tao medicine, martial arts, hunting, carpentry, masonry, all kinds of mountain survival skills. With his marksmanship and hard-won experience, he'd even earned himself the title of #1 gun in his day. And now, one blink, and he was back, right at the day when all of it began. The regrets of his past life could be made up for, slowly, in time. But the door in front of him was about to open right now. Li Qingshan carefully straightened the clothes of the still unconscious Wang Naixiang, doing his best to leave nothing that could be twisted into evidence. Halfway through, she stirred, cracked one bleary eye open, mumbled his name, and then slipped right back under. Outside, Zhao Guwei's voice was already ringing out, hurrying the crowd along. The courtyard gate was locked from the outside. Any normal person would be trapped inside, waiting to get cornered. But Li Qingshan had spent years training in his last life. A wall this low wasn't stopping him. He scaled the back wall, dropped into the rear yard, and circled around behind the crowd, just another bystander who'd wandered over to watch the show. Zhao Guwei, still clueless that the room was now empty, was busy sobbing to the villagers. He wailed that Li Qingshan had gotten drunk and forced his way into his daughter-in-law's room, and that he and his wife, old and frail, hadn't dared to stop him, so they'd run out to fetch witnesses. Li the blacksmith frowned hard at that. He cut straight to it. If you knew your daughter-in-law was being taken advantage of, why didn't you stop him first? How do you find the time to run through the whole damn village calling people over to watch instead? The question landed right on the hole in the story. But the crowd was there for a spectacle, and nobody wanted to call it early. Zhao Guwei quickly unlocked the gate and poured inside with Li Hu, Li the blacksmith, Zhang the tofu maker, and a dozen-odd households of villagers. Ho Hot and other village women were in the mix too. Some genuinely worried something terrible had happened. Others just wanted to watch Li Qingshan crash and burn. Zhao Guwei had even kept his words vague on purpose, letting everyone paint their own picture of what was going on inside. It wasn't a clever trick, but in a village where everyone knew everyone, it worked perfectly. The facts weren't even sorted out yet, and the gossip could already circle the village 3 times over. But the bed held only Wang Naixiang, fully clothed. Li Qingshan was nowhere in the room. Zhao Guwei and his wife froze. They dumped the man in that bed with their own hands and locked the gate themselves. How does someone black out drunk just vanish into thin air? Li Hu had no patience for their guessing game. He was here to collect a debt, not put on a play. The money Zhao Chong had borrowed needed to be answered for today. Desperate to stall him, Zhao Guwei had his wife douse Wang Naixiang awake with cold water, then started grilling her about where Li Qingshan was hiding. Wang Naixiang came to and saw a room full of men. Then she heard her own in-laws cursing her out in front of everyone. For a moment, she couldn't make sense of any of it. The longer Zhao Guwei went without finding his man, the more he panicked, until he actually blurted out, in front of the whole crowd, that Li Qingshan had just been in her bed. He tore through the cabinets, checked under the bed, dead certain the man was hiding somewhere in the room. The search turned up nothing, but it laid Zhao Guwei's whole scheme bare. No father-in-law who actually cared about his daughter-in-law's honor would say those things in front of half the village, let alone throw open her bedroom for everyone to gawk at. Just as the crowd started turning suspicious, Li Qingshan spoke up from the back, slow and easy. Big crowd. What's all the fuss about? Zhao Guwei lunged at him like a drowning man grabbing a rope, jabbing a finger and shouting that Li Qingshan had been drinking at his place just now and forced himself on Wang Naixiang while wasted. Li Qingshan didn't rush to argue. First, he let the crowd take a good look at him. Sure, he smelled like liquor, but that was from drinking at home this morning. Right now, his speech was clear, his footing steady. Did he look anything like a drunk who'd just been dragged in and dumped? More to the point, Wang Naixiang's clothes were untouched. The room had been empty, and Zhao Guwei couldn't produce a shred of proof. Zhao Guwei dug in, insisting they'd been drinking together, and cooked up a story on the spot. Li Qingshan had said he was going out to take a piss, and somehow ended up in the daughter-in-law's room. The old couple, no match for a young man in a fight, had gone to fetch the neighbors for help. Li Qingshan heard him out, then asked just 2 questions. If he'd been so drunk he needed to be carried, how had he turned around and scaled the locked courtyard wall? And if Zhao Guwei had seen him walk into that room with his own eyes, why not raise the alarm on the spot? Why leave Wang Naixiang alone in there instead? Zhao Guwei had no answer. All he could do was repeat, over and over, he was just in the bed, I swear. And the more he repeated it, the more it sounded like the truth had slipped out by accident. Because how else could he be so sure, unless he'd put the man there himself? Li the blacksmith was the first to step up for what was right. Li Qingshan might be a layabout, but he'd never once brought harm to any girl in the village. For Zhao Guwei to slap a charge like this on him, it could ruin a young man's entire life. The other villagers caught on too. Catch a thief with the loot, catch a cheater in the act. Zhao Guwei had built up a whole vivid story before dragging everyone over here, and then the room turned up nothing. Any way you cut it, this reeked of a deliberate smear. Watching the whole thing spiral out of his control, Li Hu simply slapped Zhao Chong's Ayu down in front of Zhao Guwei. He didn't care why the Zhao family had failed to trap Li Qingshan. All he cared about was when those 36 yuan were getting paid. And in Stone Creek Village in 1957, a pound of sweet potatoes cost 8 cents, corn about a dime, pork maybe 40 cents a pound. 36 yuan was no small debt, enough to keep an ordinary farming family gasping for years. Zhao Guwei's legs gave out, and he dropped to his knees right there, begging Li Hu for a few more days, and pleading, over and over, not to have Zhao Chong's hand cut off. This was exactly the moment Li Qingshan had been waiting for. In front of everyone, he laid out the Zhao family's whole scheme, start to finish. Zhao Chong had gambling debts. Zhao Guwei couldn't cover them, so they tried to frame their own daughter-in-law and squeeze the new courtyard out of the Li family to plug the hole. The proof might not be enough to haul Zhao Guwei down to the township office, but it was more than enough for the whole village to see exactly what kind of man he was. Li Qingshan seized the moment and rushed in, giving Zhao Gui a thorough beating. He didn't just swing at his face. He picked the spots that hurt like hell, but wouldn't leave any serious damage. His Dao medicine skills from his last life were more or less wasted on a brawl like this, but they were perfect for collecting interest. At first, the villagers wanted to break it up, but once they understood Zhao Gui had tried to trade his daughter-in-law's honor for money, their hands got a lot slower. Only when Zhao Gui was curled up on the ground howling did the crowd finally pull Li Qingshan off him. Furious and in pain, Zhao Gui lay there and kept cursing. But Li Qingshan didn't lose control any further. He knew full well his goal today wasn't to put Zhao Gui in the hospital. It was to make the villagers remember why this couple had earned their beating. If someone actually died, the side that was in the right would get dragged down with them. It was the first change in how he did things since coming back to life. Don't flinch when it's time to be ruthless, and don't let your emotions drag you around once you've made your point. Still, a beating didn't make the gambling debt disappear. Li Hu's eyes landed on the newly awake Wang Naixiang, and he floated an even nastier idea. The Zhao family marries Wang Naixiang off to him, and Zhao Chang's debt gets wiped clean. Zhao Gui barely hesitated. His eldest son had died on his own wedding day, struck in the chest by an iron nail sent flying from a homemade firecracker gone wrong, dead on the spot. Wang Naixiang had been widowed on her very first day of marriage, and she'd stayed a widow for 3 years. But in Zhao Gui's eyes, a dead son's wife had already lost her value. If she could buy back his younger son's hand, well, that was a bargain he'd take any day. Wang Naixiang flat out refused. She'd heard Li Hu was sick with something, and she knew the man was vicious and domineering. Marrying him meant a life of misery, guaranteed. Yet Zhao Gui and his wife turned it around and accused her of being selfish, said the Zhao family had paid a bride price to bring her in, so she was obligated to obey her in-laws. If she wouldn't make the sacrifice, then Zhao Chang losing a hand would be entirely her fault. The Zhao woman said it with particular self-righteousness. Zhao Chang was a man, lose a hand, and the rest of his life was ruined. Wang Naixiang was just a widow. Sooner or later, she'd have to find another man anyway. By her math, it didn't matter who the daughter-in-law married. What mattered was whether it could buy their son back whole. It sounded like she was invoking some family law. In reality, she was just treating a living person as an object to settle a debt. Isolated and with no one to turn to, Wang Naixiang cast a pleading look toward Li Qingshan. He didn't let her down. In front of everyone, he reminded Zhao Gui that this was the new society now. Marriage was a matter of free choice. Wang Naixiang's marriage couldn't even be forced by her own birth family, let alone decided by in-laws whose son was already dead. If the Zhao family dared to force a widowed daughter-in-law to remarry, they'd have some explaining to do to the propaganda officer. Zhao Gui wouldn't back down, still harping on the bride price. So Li Qingshan told him to go collect it from whoever had taken that bride price. Wang Naixiang had married in to be his son's wife, not to spend her whole life as a widow for the Zhao family. She'd lost her husband on day 1 and wasted 3 years for nothing. If anything, it was the Zhao family who owed her. Seeing Li Hu and her in-laws still moving to force her, Wang Naixiang grabbed a pair of scissors from the room and pressed them to her own throat, telling everyone, "Force me to marry, and I'll die right here." The move dropped the whole room into dead silence. The villagers hurried to talk her into putting the scissors down, and they warned Zhao Gui and Li Hu too. If they drove someone to death, not one of them would walk away clean. Li Hu especially. He was angling to run for militia company commander, get tagged with forcing a marriage and driving someone to their death, and forget the post. He wouldn't even clear the township's background check. Li Hu finally had second thoughts, but he still wouldn't let go of the 36 yuan. Zhao Gui and his wife were caught between fearing Wang Naixiang might actually do it and fearing Zhao Chang's hand couldn't be saved. And so the standoff hung there in the room. That was when Li Qingshan stepped up and offered to settle the Zhao family's debt himself. Everyone's first reaction was disbelief. The Li family wasn't well off, and Li Qingshan had no real livelihood of his own. Where would he get 36 yuan? But what he was really after wasn't the Zhao family at all. It was that rundown little courtyard of theirs. Decades later, Stone Creek Village would launch into a construction boom, and a work crew digging on the old Zhao property would unearth an underground palace beneath it. 9 chambers in all. 4 of them stayed below freezing year-round, and the rest were cold and dry too, ideal for long-term storage of meat and vegetables. Later, people found a limestone cavern below it, which finally explained the strange, constant cold. But right now it was the summer of 1957, and much of the country was pushing forward with advanced cooperatives. By Li Qingshan's memory, Stone Creek Village hadn't formed an advanced co-op yet, but in about a year, it would be folded straight into a people's commune. Once everyone was eating from the communal pot, holding onto your own grain and meat wouldn't be easy. If he could open up that underground palace ahead of time, then stockpile with game from the mountains, this shabby little courtyard would become the most valuable storehouse in the whole village. Li Qingshan knew exactly what he was doing. He wasn't here to pay off Xiao Chang's gambling debt, and he sure wasn't playing hero on some impulse to save the damsel. He was spending 36 yuan to buy the single most critical survival resource of the next decade plus. The problem was, right now, he didn't have a cent. So Li Qingshan turned to Li Hu and proposed borrowing 36 yuan, to be repaid a month later at 40 yuan, principal and interest, with the Li family's newly built courtyard put up as collateral. The villagers sucked in sharp breaths. The Zhao family's beat-up courtyard was worth 30 yuan at most, but the Li family's new house was spacious, solid, and well-located, easily worth 40. Everyone had assumed it was being set aside for Li Qingshan's own wedding, and they scrambled to talk him out of throwing his future away to fill the Zhao family's hole. Li the blacksmith reminded him that the house had been raised shovelful by shovelful, brick by brick, by Li Sankuei himself. Lose it, and what would he marry a wife with? Zhang the tofu maker urged him not to be reckless. The Zhao family's debt was the Zhao family's to carry, and no outsider needed to stake a lifetime's roof over their head on it. These people were genuinely looking out for him, so Li Qingshan didn't snap back. He only said he'd already thought it through. Explaining the underground palace and the coming commune was obviously impossible, so he let the crowd chalk the whole deal up to a young man's gamble. Only Li Qingshan knew the truth. That house had never really been his to begin with. The Li family hadn't split their household yet. His grandfather, Li Laoduan, controlled all the family's land, income, and homestead. The new courtyard had been built mostly by Li Qingshan and his father Li Sankuei's own labor. But in the end, Li Laoduan would hand it over to his most favored eldest grandson, Li Qingshu. In his last life, father and son had worn themselves out for 2 years, only to build a wedding house for the uncle's family. That being the case, Li Qingshan felt not the slightest pang about putting it up as collateral. As long as he earned 40 yuan within the month, Li Hu would profit and the house wouldn't actually be lost. And even if Li Laotuan found out and raised hell, well, the contract was already signed, the deed was done, and there'd be no easy way for him to overturn it. After running the numbers, Li Hu agreed on the spot. For yuan of interest was nothing to sneeze at, and if Li Qingshan couldn't pay up, he'd get a far more valuable new courtyard instead. Any way he sliced it, he wasn't the one coming out behind. Both sides drew up the IOU. Li Qingshan took the 36 yuan, and he turned right around and set the money down in front of Zhao Gui. Your courtyard, I'm buying it. To save Xiao Chang, Zhao Gui grabbed for that cash faster than anyone. But Li Qingshan wouldn't let him seal it on a verbal promise alone. He had a separate sale contract drawn up, stipulating that once the title transfer was complete, both sides were square, and giving the Zhao family 5 days to move out. 36 yuan for the Zhao family's old courtyard was a few yuan over the going rate. The onlookers were more convinced than ever that Li Qingshan had gotten fleeced, while Zhao Gui clutched the money like it was a lifeline, terrified Li Qingshan might change his mind. But that was exactly why Li Qingshan was willing to overpay. Set the price high enough, and Zhao Gui would sign fast in his moment of panic. And once the paperwork was done, even if he later discovered there was a whole other world beneath that courtyard, he'd have a hard time reopening the case on the excuse that he'd been lowballed. To keep Zhao Gui from backing out later, the two of them took their documents down to the township office that same day. The paperwork went smoothly. The clerk said the land and property title could be picked up in 3 days. Only when he'd walked out of the township office did Li Qingshan finally let himself relax. A scheme that should have destroyed him and Wang Naixiang had instead landed him the Zhao family's courtyard. Zhao Gui had cleared his gambling debt, but lost the roof over his head. Li Hu now held a 40 yuan IOU, and all Li Qingshan had put on the line was a new house that had been destined to go to his cousin anyway. Of course, none of it was truly in the bag yet. The township office wouldn't issue the title for 3 more days, and the Zhao family still had 5 days to move. Li Qingshan had to guard against them backing out midway, and he had to scrape together 40 yuan within the month. Miss a single step, and today's slick reversal would leave a mess behind. On the surface, all 3 men figured they'd solved their problems. In reality, the only one who'd actually secured his future was Li Qingshan. The news reached Stone Creek Village before they even got back. Some said Zhao Chang had ruined his family. Others said Li Qingshan was even crazier than Zhao Chang. mortgaging a brand new house to borrow 36 yuan and buy an old dirt courtyard. No matter how you did the math, he'd overpaid by several yuan. Li Laoduan was cooling off under the tree at the edge of the village when the news reached him. His old rival, Zhao Yutian, made a point of pouring salt in the wound, telling him the IOU was already in Li Hu's hands. Li Laoduan grabbed his dry tobacco pipe in a rage and hurried home, because in his plans, that new house was for his eldest grandson Li Qingshu to marry with, and Li Qingshan had never had any right to touch it. By the time Li Qingshan got back from handling the paperwork, it was nearly dark. At the village entrance, he warned Zhao Gui one more time. Once the deed came through, the two families were completely square, and the Zhaos had to be out within 5 days. Zhao Gui, focused only on getting home to check whether Zhao Chang's hand was still attached, agreed on the spot and hurried off. The first step, the courtyard, was done. Next came that 40 yuan debt. Li Qingshan planned to head into the mountains the next day. Stone Creek Village backed onto old-growth forest, where pheasant, hare, roe deer, and wild boar were hardly rare. In town, a pheasant fetched over 40 cents, a hare around 40, a dressed young boar, if it still came out to 150 or 60 pounds at 36 cents a pound, could sell for 50 or 60 yuan a head. And with enough luck, say, a sable pelt fit for export in exchange for foreign currency, a single hide could go for over 200 yuan. Li Qingshan remembered these prices well. Hazel mushrooms went for 20 cents a pound, soybean oil about 70 cents, lard around 50. For an ordinary farming household, scraping 40 yuan out of the fields was brutally hard, but mountain goods could turn into cash fast. The old forest was dangerous, yes, but it was also one of the few places a man could get started with no capital at all. The numbers made a person's eyes light up, but mountain money was never there for the taking. The best hunters had a gun, a hunting dog, and hard-won knowledge of the terrain. Right now, Li Qingshan had no gun, no dog, not even a decent bow, knife, or coil of rope ready to go. Luckily, those shortages could be worked around. The truly valuable thing, experience, was already carved into his mind. In those years with the old Taoist, he'd learned more than reading game trails, setting snares, and tracking. The old man had spent years treating the accumulated injuries and ailments of several old soldiers, and through that, Li Qingshan had gotten his hands on all kinds of firearms at the military district. Long years of body tempering practice had pushed his strength, reflexes, eyesight, and senses far beyond any ordinary hunter's. This 18-year-old body hadn't recovered to his past life peak yet, but for handling a bow and cold steel, it was more than enough. So the order of preparation he set for himself was clear. First get a bow, arrows, a knife, and rope. Then find someone who knew the mountain paths outside the village and ask around for recent conditions. A gun and a hunting dog would be ideal, but neither was a must for a first trip in. What he really needed to avoid was letting others mistake his confidence for the reckless bluster of a total greenhorn, and cutting off this path to money before it started. He was still working out his gear when Wang Naixiang called out to him from behind a haystack. She'd already changed out of the clothes soaked by the cold water, and she'd come specifically to thank Li Qingshan. If not for him today, she'd either have been framed by her in-laws or forced to marry Li Hu. Li Qingshan told her, from now on, if the Zhao family bullies her again, she can come straight to him. A perfectly ordinary promise, but to Wang Naixiang, it carried a weight that was almost staggering. She'd lost her husband on their wedding day, and for the 3 years since, the Zhao family had branded her a husband killer. She did the heaviest work in the house and ate the worst food, and when she was wronged, there was no one she could even talk to. It wasn't that she didn't know how to resist. It was that a widow with no birth family behind her had almost no leverage to resist with, not in this village. Wang Naixiang saw the risk of today clearly too. Li Qingshan escaping the Zhao courtyard had been luck and skill, but if Zhao Gui and his wife had dared to set one trap, there might well be a second. She didn't want Li Qingshan saddled with a 40 yuan debt on her account, and even less did she want that new house, the one meant to marry a wife with, falling into Li Hu's hands. But what worried her most was Li Qingshan himself. Turning 36 yuan into 40 within a month was flat out impossible on farm work alone. The moment she learned he planned to go hunting in the mountains, she tried to stop him. Over the years, the men who died in that old forest numbered at least a dozen or more. Even famous hunt leaders rarely came back out in one piece. Zhao Zhanshan of the village was seasoned. He'd even saved Li Qingshan up in the mountains a few years back, and not long ago he'd still been badly gored by a boar. Now he lay bedridden, likely never to set foot in the mountains again. The way Wang Naixiang saw it, Li Qingshan going in with no hunt leader to guide him and no gear was barely different from throwing his life away. His elder brother had long since fled an arranged marriage and left home, and rumor had it he'd died somewhere out there. If something happened to Li Qingshan too, Li Sankuei and his wife would have no one to care for them in old age, and the widowed sister-in-law would lose her last support as well. She even said she'd sooner marry Li Hu. Anything was better than Li Qingshan gambling his life away. Li Qingshan cut her off flat. Going up the mountain wasn't only about the dead, it was about changing the whole family's life. Besides, he was going into the old forest to hunt, not to die. After all the trouble he'd gone to today to pull Wang Naixiang out of Li Hu's hands, if she turned around and jumped into the fire pit herself, then everything he'd done really would have been for nothing. Unable to talk him out of it, Wang Naixiang could only pull a freshly boiled egg from inside her clothes. In these times, an egg was as precious as meat. Ordinary farming households couldn't bear to eat them. The loss of even one would be noticed. Given Wang Naixiang's position in the Zhao household, if her in-laws found this egg missing, it likely meant another beating and another round of curses. Li Qingshan didn't just push it away the way he had in his last life. He understood that sometimes accepting someone's kindness was a way of giving them back a little dignity. He peeled the egg, ate half, and held the other half out to Wang Naixiang. She wouldn't take it at first, so Li Qingshan told her. If she wouldn't even share half an egg with him, then how could she ever really come to him when she'd been wronged? The two of them split one egg behind the haystack. To Li Qingshan, it was just a bite of a long-missed farm egg. To Wang Naixiang, it was the first time in 3 years with the Zhao family that anyone had treated her as a person who deserved something good to eat. And in that half an egg, Li Qingshan saw exactly where Wang Naixiang stood. She had no money, nothing valuable to give. All she could do was risk a beating to save one bite of food. If a kindness like that were handed back to her face, what she'd carry home wouldn't be the egg, but the rejection of "you don't need to look after me." Li Qingshan chose to accept the gesture and to hand back his own half in return, so that what passed between them was no longer just one-sided charity and debt. The sky was darkening. Wang Naixiang hurried back to the Zhao household to cook, and Li Qingshan returned to the Li family compound. The dinner table in the yard was already set, but the mood was more like a trial. Li Laoduan had 3 sons. Li Qingshan's father, Li Sankuei, was the third. Their family of 4 lived in 2 cramped rooms on the east side of the compound, right next to the storeroom, the kitchen, and the outhouse. Li Sankuei and his wife had 1 room. Li Qingshan and his widowed sister-in-law were crammed into the other, separated only by a wooden partition. The partitions cut the doorways down to a narrow half, and once you set a small bed inside, there was barely room to turn around. His eldest uncle, Li Dakuei, and his family lived far more spaciously. His only son, Li Qingshu, was Li Laoduan's most favored eldest grandson. He had not just his own room, but a study besides. The whole family put up grain and money to send Li Qingshu to the rural part-time upper primary class, and even though his grades sat at the bottom year after year, in the old man's mouth he was still the child with the most promise. The second uncle's family had a pair of twin sons, currently apprenticing under Carpenter Zhao. On top of that, Li Laoduan had a married daughter who rarely came home. Though 4 households lived under one roof, the seating at the table laid out every degree of favor and neglect in plain sight. Li Laoduan and his wife sat at the head, the good dishes set before them. Right beside them were Li Qingshu and the eldest uncle and aunt. The second uncle's family came next, and Li Sankuei and his wife, Li Qingshan, and the widowed sister-in-law could only sit at the very far end, eating the worst of what was on the table. Li Qingshan had barely sat down when Li Laoduan waved his dry tobacco pipe and ordered him to stand back up. Li Dakuei seized the chance to attack, saying that at 18, if Li Qingshan dared mortgage the new house today, tomorrow he'd dare to murder and set fires. The eldest aunt dragged Li Qingshu into it, claiming that if Li Qingshan ruined the family's name, it would hurt Li Qingshu's chances of finding work down the road. A crime that hadn't even happened was thus dragged out as evidence for family law. What truly angered them wasn't that Li Qingshan had borrowed money. It was that he'd touched a benefit that had been set aside for Li Qingshu. Li Laoduan demanded to see the IOU and ordered Li Qingshan to go find Li Hu at once and return the 36 yuan. Before Li Qingshan could say a word, his father Li Sankuei was already stunned. He'd spent these years building that courtyard brick by brick, clod by clod during the farming lulls, always believing it was for his son to marry with. Only now did Li Laoduan admit, in his own words, that the new house had been meant for the eldest grandson Li Qingshu from the very start. For the first time, Li Sankuei challenged his father in front of everyone. and was instantly slapped with the label of unfilial by his elder brother. Li Laoduan then trotted out four so-called principles. First, he never explicitly promised the house belonged to Li Qingshan. Second, the homestead was registered in his own name. Third, as head of the household, he had the right to decide the family's property. Fourth, Li Qingshu was the eldest son of the eldest line and had reached marrying age, so he should rightly be first into the new house. As for Li Qingshan, he could build his own later, when he had the means. The 4 points sounded like a careful progression, but they all came down to one thing. Li Sankuei could do the labor, Li Qingshan could wait, and the ready-made benefit had to go to the eldest branch first. What pained Li Sankuei most wasn't even losing the house. It was that his father had never counted his toil for anything. To save on materials, he'd mixed the mud, molded the bricks, and laid the walls himself during the off-season, and Li Qingshan had put in no small share of the work too. The old man knew perfectly well why the third branch had broken their backs on that house, yet had deliberately left the ownership unspoken. Then, once it was built, pulled out head of the household to crush them. This wasn't a change of heart on the spot. It was a plan from the very beginning to make the third branch labor for free for the eldest line. Years of being ground down had left Li Sankuei soft by habit, even when he knew it was wrong. He didn't dare keep arguing, and could only mutter that maybe his father had a point after all. At the far end of the table, both the mother and the sister-in-law were sweating on Li Qingshan's behalf, but neither dared jump in. In this household, the third branch had no say over even what they ate, let alone the right to fight over a new courtyard. Every time conflict flared in the past, it usually ended with Li Sankuei apologizing first and the third branch losing out again. The others had long since come to take that surrender for granted. But this time, Li Qingshan rose to his feet and walked, step by step, toward the head of the table. He didn't bow his head as he once had, and he had no intention of paying for anyone's favoritism any longer. Li Laoduan and Li Dakue assumed he'd finally caved to family law, and satisfaction was already showing on their faces. What they didn't know was that this young man, once theirs to push around at will, had already seen through the Li family's accounts across a whole other lifetime. He'd already overturned the Zhao family's scheme, and the courtyard worth 36 yuan had already changed hands. What was due for settling now was the old debt this dinner table had owed the third branch for years. Reaching the head of the table, Li Qingshan didn't grab for the tobacco pipe, and he didn't keep arguing the points with Li Laoduan that could never be argued through. He reached past Li Qingshu and swept the steamed buns, the soybean paste, and the stewed cabbage off the table, carrying them all over to the third branch in one go. The whole yard went silent in an instant. The Li family table ran on a set of rules maintained for years. The good dishes went first to the old man and the eldest line. The third branch should count itself grateful just to get sweet potato soup. Li Qingshan carrying the food away now moved more than a few bowls. It moved the very authority Li Laoduan used to prove he was head of the household. Sweet potato soup in the morning, sweet potato soup at noon, sweet potato soup again at night. Keep drinking it, and a man'll turn into a sweet potato himself. Li Qingshan sat back down at the far end, took a chopstick full of cabbage first, then looked up and asked, "Grandpa, you just said the family's never shorted me a single meal. So me eating a little of the dishes, that's no problem, right?" Li Laoduan had just declared he never shorted anyone's food, so of course he couldn't take it back in front of everyone now. Li Dakue tried to cut in, and Li Qingshan glared straight at him. "Grandpa said I can eat. What's your hurry? Acting like you outrank the head of the household." One line jammed both father and son. The old Li Qingshan would only have shouted them down head-on, and always ended up crushed back by those two words, unfilial. Now he'd learned to use Li Laoduan's own rules to pin the eldest line in place. Only when he was half full did he bring up the mortgage. The new courtyard was only collateral. He'd never said he wouldn't repay. Within a month, as long as he handed 40 yuan to Li Hu, the house naturally wouldn't slip away. "And what are you going to repay with?" Li Dakue sneered. "Loafing around the village?" Li Qingshan set down his bowl and told the whole family. Tomorrow, he was going up the mountain to hunt. That drew not support, but a whole table of doubt. Some asked whether he could even draw a bow. Others said going into the old forest, he was only good for feeding the black bears. His mother and sister-in-law were genuinely afraid, but the eldest line quickly spotted a different kind of benefit in the matter. Li Qingshu lowered his voice and worked out a vicious calculation for Li Laoduan and his father. If Li Qingshan died in the mountains, the loan became a bad debt. With the new courtyard registered in Li Laoduan's name, Li Hu might not actually be able to take it. Li Sankuei was getting on in years and had only this one son left. Once the third branch's line was cut, Li Qingshu could step forward to promise care in old age, and everything Li Sankuei and his wife earned would sooner or later fall to the eldest line. Li Laoduan and Li Dakuei actually nodded along, even praising Li Qingshu as living up to his name as the most promising child in the family. A young man dead last in his upper primary class won such unanimous approval for the first time, not through his studies, but by dreaming up how to devour the rest of his third uncle's life. They thought they'd kept it quiet enough. Li Qingshan heard every word. Li Laoduan then switched to a different tone, deliberately baiting him. If he really had the ability, then bring back a 300-pound boar. Young men were most vulnerable to a dare. If Li Qingshan pushed deep into the mountains to prove himself, the eldest line wouldn't even have to lift a finger. Li Qingshan turned the scheme back on them, declaring on the spot that never mind 300 pounds, he could haul back a 500-pounder. But to go hunting, he'd need a proper tool for the job. He asked the family first for money to buy a gun. Sure enough, the moment money came up, Li Laoduan's face darkened. The family's savings were for Li Qingshu's wedding. Where was their spare cash to buy the third branch's boy a gun? The old man didn't forget to shove the blame back onto Li Sankuei either, saying that if only the third branch earned more, he, as grandfather, would surely be willing to help. A hunting rifle cost far more than an ordinary earthen brick house, and Li Qingshan hadn't expected him to agree anyway. He stepped back and said if not a gun, then a bow, and was refused flat by Li Laoduan again. Only after 2 refusals in a row did Li Qingshan raise what he'd really wanted all along: provisions for the mountains. The Li family's grain sack had always been held in his grandmother's hands. For a hunter going up for several days, the handiest food was chow mein, cornmeal fried and cooked in advance. On the trail you could eat it dry, with water and thyme, mix it into a paste. Or you could carry hard cornmeal flat cakes baked with salt, long-keeping and filling. Better-off hunters would bring jerky. Ordinary households naturally couldn't bear to. The type of grain in these times also marked a family standing. Most in Stone Creek Village filled their bellies on high-yield, cheap sweet potatoes, and rotating through sweet potato soup morning, noon, and night was nothing unusual. Only slightly better-off homes ate cornmeal flat cakes. Above that were millet and white flour. A hunter had to cross ridges, cut trail, and haul game. Far more taxing than ordinary field work, and on thin soup alone, he'd lose his strength fast. That was exactly where jerky's value lay. It kept, and it replenished what the body most lacked. But to a household that saw meat only a handful of times a year, making jerky to carry into the mountains was practically a luxury. Li Qingshan didn't expect his grandmother to part with meat. Getting enough fried cornmeal would serve his purpose. Once he brought down his first batch of game, the mountains themselves could supply the rest. Li Qingshan said he'd be in the mountains 3 days at the least, 10 days to half a month at the most. Take too little food, and he could only circle the outer edge. Bringing back a 300-pound boar would be a joke. Hearing this, Li Qingshu immediately egged the old man on to give more. The more food, the more likely Li Qingshan would push deep into the old forest, and the greater the chance he'd lose his way or run into a beast. Li Laoduan actually had his wife prepare fried cornmeal in a portion for 10 days to half a month. This time it was Li Qingshan's turn to be quietly pleased. He hadn't gotten a gun or a bow, but he'd wrung provisions far beyond expectation out of an old man who'd never given up a hair before. The eldest line was hoping for his death, so he'd feed himself full on their grain first. After the meal, his parents and his sister-in-law Lu Guixiang followed him into the cramped room. Li Sankuei shut the door and asked at once whether something had possessed his son. Zhao Zhanshan of the village had hunted for decades and still had his heart and lungs gored by a boar. If other hunters hadn't happened to find him, he'd have been left in the mountains for good. Li Qingshan had no hunt leader to guide him and had never openly learned to hunt. Any way you looked at it, going up was courting death. His mother clutched her son's hands and pleaded, again and again, for him not to go. Li Sankuei had already lost an eldest son who'd fled his marriage and left home. If something happened to Li Qingshan too, this family would be left with no hope at all. Li Qingshan couldn't speak of his rebirth or his past life. All he could do was promise not to take reckless risks. He explained to his parents that going up the mountain wasn't only for the 40 yuan, but to give the third branch the means to break away from the Li family. Once the paperwork on the Zhao family's old courtyard was settled, they'd have a place of their own, and then they had to split the household as soon as possible. The moment he heard the words, split the household, Li Sankuei instinctively wanted to shrink back. He'd been ground down too long by filial duty and paternal authority. Even having just learned that the house he'd built was to be handed to his nephew, his first reaction wasn't to leave, but to examine where he had fallen short. Li Qingshan knew full well his father couldn't change overnight. He'd need to earn money first, bring back meat, and let Li Sankuei see with his own eyes the rewards that came after resisting. When a person has grown used to being shortchanged, talk alone can rarely wake him. Someone has to break down that first door for him. In his last life, once Li Laoduan grew old, the eldest and second uncles hid far away, and the one who actually shouldered his care and burial was Li Sankuei, the very man they'd exploited most. His father wasn't blind to the favoritism. He just always felt one more round of enduring would earn him acknowledgement. The truth was, every concession only made the others more certain the third branch had no bottom line. This time Li Qingshan didn't intend to wait any longer. He'd already thought through the worst case. If his father still refused to split, he'd take his mother away first. If his mother wouldn't go, he'd ask his sister-in-law. And if no one dared step out the courtyard gate, he'd move into the Zhao family's old courtyard alone. Only by first building a life beyond Li Laoduan's control could he ever bring his family out, one by one. Lu Guixiang didn't join in trying to stop him. She only said Li Qingshan was grown now, and since he'd made his decision, she, his sister-in-law, supported him. Then she left the room by herself. Li Sankuei sighed that it was his own lack of ability, and in the end laid down just one condition. Before setting out, Li Qingshan had to go to the far end of the village and see Zhao Zhanshan. The old man might be too injured to leave his bed, but the decades of forest experience were still in him. At the very least, he could tell Li Qingshan which places not to go and which rules not to break. After his parents left, Li Qingshan sat cross-legged on the bed and tried to run the Taoist mental method and body-tempering art he'd learned from the old Taoist in his last life. The result quickly threw cold water on him. The memories and the medical skill were still there, but his physical cultivation hadn't come back with the rebirth. Everything had to be rebuilt from scratch. His body-tempering art was also called the Taoist health-preserving fist. Its purpose was to forge the flesh and gradually give rise to pure yang, true qi within the body. The Taoist mental method governed the use of that force. An ordinary physician reads a pulse mainly by its feel, which inevitably leaves room for error. If Li Qingshan sent pure yang, true qi into the meridians, he could discern an ailment far more finely. Acupuncture worked the same way. With true qi to aid it, a few gold needles could achieve what ordinary technique needed many needles to do. The gold needle art passed down by the old Taoist went up to 13 needles, each one harder than the last. In his last life, Li Qingshan had studied bitterly for decades and could steadily apply only up to the 6th needle, already enough to handle the vast majority of illnesses. His master had once said he might, in this life, touch the 9th needle. Before that could come true, he'd found himself back at 18. 13 needles didn't mean every ailment had to be stuck with all 13. The deeper the illness, the higher the level required. Common complaints could often be handled in a few needles. The real difficulty was that each additional needle raised the demand on true qi control and the body's endurance by a whole tier. That Li Qingshan could reach the 6th needle in his past life came not just from memorizing the points, but from decades of cultivation that had forged stable true qi. Now the technique, the pharmacology, and the experience were all in his head, but inside his body was empty. It was like an old carpenter who still remembered how to build a house, but had no saw, no plane, and no lumber in hand. On ordinary pulse reading and acupuncture alone, he was still better than most barefoot doctors in the villages and towns. But faced with a grave injury like Zhao Zhanshan's, one that reached the heart vessels, without true qi, he couldn't truly bring the full inheritance to bear. Medicine was his other trump card for surviving in this era, but to unleash its real power, he had to first refine pure yang true qi. After running through the health-preserving fist once, the meal he'd just eaten felt as if it had been burned hollow, leaving him so hungry he lay on the bed with no wish to move. Cultivation was hugely draining. Sweet potato soup and fried cornmeal could hardly sustain it for long. He had to take in meat. And so hunting gained one more reason he couldn't avoid. Without meat, neither his body nor his medicine could recover. Around 5 the next morning, with the sky still a dim gray, Li Qingshan rose and sorted his gear. There was a hatchet in the woodshed and rope to be found at home. Once in the mountains, he could carve throwing spears and set traps. Without a bow, the first trip would be harder, but not without options. He pushed open the door and was surprised to find Lu Guixiang hadn't come back all night. Just as he began to worry something had happened to her, footsteps came from outside the courtyard gate. Lu Guoxiang walked back limping, her face covered in sweat, a real hunting bow slung across her shoulder. She'd rushed back to her parents' home overnight and brought back the bow her father used to use. It was in fine condition, worth at least 8 or 9 yuan at market. No lowly piece among hunting bows that ranged from 5 to 20. 9 yuan was enough to buy 20-odd pheasants, even more than the bride price the Li family had once paid for Lu Guoxiang. Lu Guoxiang wasn't unaware of what that bow was worth. Her old father no longer used it, but that didn't mean it had no value. To a hunting family, a familiar good bow was the tool that put food on the table and something that could save your life in a crisis. Taking the bow from her family was, in effect, handing over an important piece of property her father had kept for years to the Li household. Lu Guoxiang said her father was old and the bow only sat and used, so Li Qingshan shouldn't ask too much. Just take it up the mountain to protect his life. But Li Qingshan noticed at a glance that the silver bracelet on her wrist was gone. That bracelet had been part of Lu Guoxiang's dowry when she married in, still on her wrist the day before. She hadn't just gone home to borrow the bow, she'd traded the silver bracelet for it. The one waiting outside to see her back was her own brother, Lu Dazhu. The Lu family had long been disgusted by the way the Li household bled the third branch dry, and had already sworn never to set foot in their door again. Lu Dazhu had no kind face for Li Qingshan either. He told him that one silver bracelet was nowhere near enough to match this bow. Their father had refused at first. It was only because Lu Guoxiang knelt outside the door for half the night that the old man's heart softened. Before leaving, Lu Dazhu gave a solemn warning. If the Li family kept bullying his sister, he would take Lu Guoxiang back for certain, and he would never let the Li family off easy. Li Qingshan didn't argue. The Lu family's anger was entirely justified. A woman had given up her dowry to see her brother-in-law safely into the mountains, then knelt a whole night outside her family's door, a debt of feeling that couldn't be squared with a few words of thanks. He made a note in his heart. Once he'd earned money, he'd not only redeem the silver bracelet, but ideally buy his sister-in-law an even finer piece of jewelry. Li Qingshan understood well enough why Lu Guoxiang would rather kneel than come back empty-handed. Her husband's fate was unknown since he'd left home, and the only ones in the Li household who truly treated her as family were these few people of the third branch. If Li Qingshan died in the mountains, she'd lose not only a brother-in-law. The third branch would be wholly at the mercy of the eldest line and the old man. She was saving Li Qingshan and guarding the last support she had left for herself. Back inside, he noticed again that Lu Guoxiang's gait was wrong. The shoes on her feet were too small to begin with. The grandmother, grudging the waste of making new ones, had fobbed her off with the eldest aunt's cast-offs. Walking the long road overnight, her feet were already rubbed raw. The eldest aunt wore new shoes herself, while the third branch's widowed daughter-in-law couldn't even get a pair of well-fitting old ones. This was the Li family's so-called treating everyone alike. Li Qingshan went to his room and fetched a pair of his own shoes. Though the size ran large, at least they wouldn't keep chafing her raw. He set them before Lu Guoxiang and promised to buy her a proper store-bought pair once he was back from hunting. Lu Guoxiang started to say old shoes loosened with wear, but Li Qingshan wouldn't let her keep toughing it out. He checked her chafed feet, confirmed it was only skin and flesh, nothing to the bone, then told her to change into looser shoes and rest well. Of all the bodily details in this that might invite misreading, only one thing truly mattered to this relationship. Lu Guoxiang was willing to trade her dowry for Li Qingshan's safety, and Li Qingshan was finally beginning to treat his sister-in-law's plight as his own responsibility. Outside the door, the fried cornmeal his grandmother had prepared was already bagged. Li Qingshan shouldered the roughly 60-pound hunting bow, packed 6 arrows, the hatchet, rope, and provisions, and went first to the far end of the village as his father had asked. Zhao Zhanshan's home was the household in Stone Creek village closest to the Great Mountains. This hunter, in his 40s, had gone into the mountains for decades and had once saved Li Qingshan's life. His son had met a black bear in the mountains years ago and never came back. His wife had died early too. Now only his daughter, Zhao Shanxing, was left to care for the home. Before Li Qingshan even reached the door, he heard coughing he couldn't suppress from inside. Zhao Zhanshan had recently had his heart and lungs gored by a boar. He'd clung to his life, but his body was so weak that even speaking took effort. The heavy smell of Chinese medicine drifted around the bedside, and nearly everything in the house worth selling had already been sold to pay for treatment. Zhao Zhanshan didn't start by teaching how to kill game. First, he asked whether Li Qingshan had truly decided to go into the mountains. Only on getting an affirmative answer did he begin, starting with staying alive. Don't go up on the 1st or 15th of the lunar month. Don't chase down unfamiliar game trails. Set traps according to the game's size and travel habits. Near water, you may easily meet game, but you'll just as easily meet beasts and other hunters. Which tracks meant a boar herd had just passed, what terrain suited setting a snare, how to judge the light, and the way back. He laid out decades of experience one item at a time. The heaviest line among them was this: what's most fearsome in the mountains isn't always the boar or the black bear. Sometimes it's people. As Zhao Zhanshan spoke, he often broke off halfway into violent coughing and had to stop to catch his breath. Even so, he couldn't bear to leave out a single item. For an old hunter who could never go up the mountain again, passing his experience to a young man willing to truly listen was, perhaps, another way of returning to the forest. Li Qingshan didn't go through the motions just because he had his past life experience. He knew the terrain, the herds, and the hunter activity could change from year to year, and what Zhao Zhanshan held was the most immediate picture of the country around Stone Creek Village in 1957. What's more, the old man had saved his life years ago. This morning's teaching was not just a few techniques, but a debt of kindness he had to remember. Beasts attacked for food and territory. Their intent was usually visible. People struck for game, guns, pelts, and secrets, often with no warning at all. Zhao Zhanshan told Li Qingshan to avoid traveling with unfamiliar hunters as much as possible, and never to casually reveal his catch. Seeing her father cough worse the more he spoke, Zhao Shanxing could only come in and cut him off. Zhao Zhanshan still gripped Li Qingshan's wrist and told him once more to keep guard against people fixed in his mind. Out the door, Zhao Shanxing handed Li Qingshan the household's last precious hunting asset, a local hunting dog named Da Huang. Da Huang was yellow-furred all over. The lead dog Zhao Zhanshan had trained over many years. He could track game by the scent lingering close to the ground, what hunters called a low nose. The rarer high nose, which locked onto scent straight from the air, was hard to find even one of within 10 li. A low nose was a tier lower, but already the helper an ordinary hunter could only wish for. A pack of hunting dogs was generally divided into lead dog, quick flank, and heavy hold. The lead dog searched and pointed the way. The quick flank was fast, suited to the chase. The heavy hold was strongly built and tasked with grappling large game. Assemble a full set, and you had the confidence to run a boar to ground. Now there was only Da Huang, but at least he could help Li Qingshan find trails and give warning. This dog was also the last companion Zhao Zhanshan had refused to sell off. Medical fees had already forced the Zhao family to sell most of their belongings, and the hunting gun had been lost the day of the accident. Yet Da Huang was kept, which showed just how much he meant to the old man. Zhao Shanxing was willing to give the dog to Li Qingshan both out of trust in the man her father had saved and in the hope that Da Huang could go on being a true hunting dog, rather than wither slowly in a yard. Zhao Shanxing still felt the regret that her father's gun had been lost when he was injured. Otherwise, Li Qingshan wouldn't have to go into the mountains on a single bough. She stroked Da Huang's head and told him to go with Li Qingshan. Da Huang knew this young man who often came to the Zhao home. After 2 soft whimpers, he nuzzled up against his leg. Li Qingshan was just about to leave when a hunter in his 20s came hurrying over, cradling a fresh boar's heart in his hands. His name was Wang Kuan, and he'd gone up the mountain with his father and several other hunters, claiming they'd just taken a boar of over 500 pounds. He'd brought the boar's heart not as a gift, but to make good on a promise Zhao Shanxing had publicly made. Zhao Zhanshan's injury was to the heart vessels. The prescription the physician had written was missing one special medicinal guide: a fresh heart from a boar over 500 pounds, dead no more than 3 days. Ordinary male boars ran mostly from 2 to 400 pounds. 300 already counted as a big one, and a 500-pound giant usually roamed the deep old forest, not only hard to find, but far harder to kill. The Zhao family had exhausted their savings on treatment. With no other bargaining chip, Zhao Shanxing had put out word to the hunters. Whoever brought back a boar's heart that met the requirement, she would keep company for a month. She wasn't making a joke of her own chastity. It was that without the medicinal guide, her father might not survive the year. Wang Kuan delivered the heart to the door and immediately pressed Zhao Shanxing on whether the promise still stood, even beginning to figure whose home to go to that night. Zhao Shanxing was about to accept when Li Qingshan saw something was wrong. Though the heart had been stretched large, it actually belonged to a boar of only about 300 pounds. Wang Kuan had tampered with it by injecting water. Wang Kuan turned hostile on the spot, sneering that Li Qingshan was just a village good for nothing. He'd never hunted, never seen a 500-pound boar, and had no standing to judge at all. He added that the boar's meat had already been loaded and sold, a full 500-odd pounds, and the villagers could all bear witness. Li Qingshan didn't compete over who could shout louder. He pointed out a medicinal trait very few people knew. Once a boar exceeded 500 pounds, 2 or 3 pale yellow, thread-like markings appeared on the surface of its heart, called flesh yellow vine. They could only be seen clearly under strong light, and had to be taken within 3 days of the boar's death. What the prescription truly required wasn't a heart of sufficient size, but the medicinal property of the flesh yellow vine. The heart Wang Kuan brought had not a single strand of flesh yellow vine on its surface. As for that 500-odd pounds of meat, it proved nothing about coming from one boar. 2 boars of around 300 pounds each, with heads, legs, and organs removed, could together yield over 500 pounds of net meat. Wang Kuan had merely injected water into one of their hearts and used the total meat weight to pass it off as a giant. Li Qingshan told Zhao Shanxing to go verify with the physician who'd written the prescription. Ask clearly whether the flesh yellow vine was present, and the fraud would be exposed at once. Zhao Shanxing didn't skip the check just because she was desperate to save her father. That set of medicine itself cost no small sum. The Zhao family could no longer afford a second dose. If the guide were fake, she'd not only fail to save her father but hand herself over to a swindler. In having her ask the physician, Li Qingshan was really giving her evidence so she wouldn't have to decide based solely on 2 men arguing. Wang Kuan broke into a cold sweat and turned it around, accusing Zhao Shanxing of not trusting him. He snatched the heart back, declaring he'd sooner feed it to the dogs than accept such suspicion, then left in a flustered rage. That reaction amounted to a confession. If the heart truly met the requirement, the thing he should most want was to go see the physician, not to block the verification. Only then did Zhao Shanxing realize she'd nearly paid with her whole life. Wang Kuan's scheme wasn't just a month either. He'd originally meant to get Zhao Shanxing pregnant, then use that to force her to marry him. With the plan exposed by Li Qingshan, the grudge was now sealed. The Wang family were hunters too. If they crossed paths in the mountains, he'd have to be doubly careful. Zhao Shanxing asked how Li Qingshan knew of the flesh yellow vine. For now he credited his medical skill to a master who lived in the mountains, saying the master had left some time ago, leaving only the inheritance. He wanted to look at Zhao Zhanshan's prescription, but Zhao Shanxing didn't believe an 18-year-old's medicine could surpass physician Zhao's, and refused. Li Qingshan didn't press. In his heart, he split the way to save Zhao Zhanshan into 2 paths. First, actually hunt a boar over 500 pounds in the mountains and obtain fresh flesh yellow vine. Second, refine Puryang True Qi as soon as possible and use gold needles to temporarily hold Zhao Zhanshan's life. The latter could only stave things off. To truly cure such an internal injury to the heart vessels required at least the 8th needle, and Li Qingshan had mastered only up to the 6th in his last life. In the short term, finding the correct medicinal guide remained the most realistic option. Leaving the Zhao home, he had the bow on his shoulder, the hatchet, rope, and grain sack at his waist, Da Huang close at his heels, and hanging at his chest the jade gourd that had come back together with his soul. The jade gourd was the sect leader's token of the sect the old Taoist belonged to. What the sect was called, the old Taoist had never explained. Li Qingshan even suspected the entire sect had only master and disciple left. In his last life, he'd never fully worked out the gourd's function, and now that it had followed him across several decades, it clearly wasn't just an ordinary ornament. Before leaving the village, Li Qingshan sorted through the accounts on his shoulders anew. Repay Li Hu 40 yuan within the month. Redeem his sister-in-law's silver bracelet, and later add an even finer piece. Renovate the Zhao family's rundown courtyard. Find a way to apply for an adjacent homestead for his father so the 2 courtyards could be joined, and guard against Zhao Gui backing out, Wang Kuan's grudge, all while helping the 3rd branch break away from the Li family as soon as possible. This hardly looked like an 18-year-old's first hunting trip. It was more the opening move of a plan to turn the whole family's fortunes around. He'd barely walked out of the village when someone behind him shouted, "Brother Sean." The one chasing after him was his childhood friendly Da Zhuang. Standing over 1.90 meters, Da Zhuang was the tallest, sturdiest young man in Stone Creek Village. He had his grandfather's tasseled spear over his shoulder and, tucked at his waist, a piece of cured meat swiped from home. Li Qingshan asked whether his parents knew. Da Zhuang answered with total conviction. If they knew, would they've let me out? He then declared that if Li Qingshan wouldn't take him, he'd go into the mountains alone. This clearly wasn't a real choice. Letting the utterly inexperienced Da Zhuang blunder in alone was more dangerous than keeping him at his side. Besides, Building a shelter and hauling game in the mountains needed helping hands. Da Zhuang was strong, and he carried a tasseled spear for close-range defense. Li Qingshan could only take him on. Da Zhuang had been Li Qingshan's follower since childhood. When the two bet, Da Zhuang often lost. Wherever Li Qingshan said to go, he'd mostly follow without asking why. The young man was simple-minded, but loyal, obedient, and physically far beyond his peers. Teach him the rules of the mountains clearly, and he'd be more reliable than scrambling to find some complicated grown hunter. As for that stolen cured meat, Li Qingshan didn't urge him to return it. He was already in the mountains, and the meat was the most practical high-energy provision. Once they came back with game, he'd compensate Da Zhuang's parents from the share, far safer than sending him back alone now. 2 men and 1 dog formally entered the mountains. The high summer old forest blocked most of the sunlight, but it wasn't cool. Moisture steamed up in the heat, and the air was as stifling as a steamer basket. Many places had no path at all. They could only hack through the brush with the hatchet, treading on dead branches to work their way in bit by bit. Li Qingshan had Da Zhuang take off the red tassel from his spear point. The bright red cloth was too conspicuous in the forest. It might spook game and reveal their position too early. On this first trip, he didn't blindly push for depth, planning 5 days in total. About 2 days of travel there and back, 3 days hunting at the chosen spot. Carrying loads, the two could only advance about 10 kilometers a day. For the boundless old forest, this was still relatively outer ground, yet already enough to get the inexperienced lost. Past 5 in the afternoon, they found a small stream and stopped nearby. Most animals need water after feeding. Hares are often active at night, while pheasants and roe deer prefer dawn and dusk. Setting camp near a water source raised the odds of spotting game, but he had to keep a safe distance and avoid blocking a predator's drinking route head-on. In the summer old forest, day broke early. The sky began to pale around 4 in the morning, and it didn't go fully dark until past 7 at night. The long daylight was good for travel, but it could also lead 2 newcomers to misjudge the time remaining. Li Qingshan insisted on stopping past 5 precisely to finish scouting, lighting a fire, and building a shelter before dark. Greed for 2 more hours of trail would multiply the danger of an unplanned open-air night. After a day's walk, Da Zhuang was reluctant to eat the cured meat right away, wanting to save it for later. But Li Qingshan split the meat in 2 and mixed fried cornmeal with cold water. He gave Da Zhuang a chain of logic that sounded utterly reasonable. The old forest had abundant grass, so plenty of grazing animals. Plenty of grazers meant plenty of carnivores, plenty of animals, and of course meat wouldn't be scarce. Since they were about to start hunting, eating their own cured meat first to restore their strength was the smart move. Da Zhuang nodded along, entirely oblivious that the core of this whole analysis was really just one thing. Li Qingshan wanted meat right now. By the time they finished eating, it was near 6 in the evening. Li Qingshan had Da Zhuang cut straight branches nearby and tie the removed tassel at camp as a marker, while he took Da Huang to scout downstream along the water. The hunting bow Lu Guixiang had brought back was about 60 pounds, with a maximum range reaching 200 meters, though the truly reliable killing accuracy fell within 50 meters. Small game like hares and pheasants could be shot within 50 meters. Roe deer, and wild goats were best led inside 30. Against a boar, he had to close to about 20 and aim for the heart or neck to have any chance of a kill. Even so, an adult boar's hide and fat were like a layer of natural armor, and a 60-pound bow might not punch through. For now, the game best suited for Li Qingshan to hunt was still small and medium animals. He'd walked only a short way along the stream when the jade gourd at his chest suddenly warmed slightly. Before he could work out why, Da Huang had already darted out soundlessly, his target a hare drinking up ahead. Once in the forest, Da Huang had all but stopped barking wildly. This was the fruit of Zhao Zhanshan's years of training. On spotting game, prioritize tracking and action, and unless warning is master, don't reveal position with barks. That single point alone put him far above an untrained house dog. A hound chasing a hare would startle other nearby game, so Li Qingshan drew the bow at once. Feet planted, stance slightly wider than his shoulders, judging wind speed at about 3 meters per second, target distance 30 meters. He led ahead based on the hare's running direction, breathing, aiming, and releasing in one smooth motion. The arrow's shadow shot through the woods and pierced the hare's neck cleanly. Da Huang rushed up and carried the quarry back, setting it at Li Qingshan's feet, tail wagging non-stop to claim credit. This was his first game since rebirth, about 4 odd pounds, with maybe a 60% meat yield. Li Qingshan didn't just bask in the joy, he immediately gutted, bled, and buried the remains. In the high summer heat, if a dead hare weren't handled promptly, its belly could ferment and bloat within about 2 hours. The smell of blood could also spread far in a short time, both scaring off game and possibly drawing in beasts. Real hunting didn't end the moment the arrow flew. How you handled the traces likewise decided whether a hunter got home safe. 5 minutes later, Li Qingshan hung the dressed hare at his waist and continued downstream. He was still pondering why the jade gourd had warmed earlier when the warmth came again at his chest. This time Da Huang had no reaction. Li Qingshan immediately scanned around, and, more than 40 meters off, saw a second, fatter hare nibbling tender grass. He drew the bowstring to full again and struck the neck with one arrow. The second hare topped 5 pounds, and the arrowhead was undamaged. The quiver Lu Guixiang had brought back held only 6 arrows in all. Every one had to be recovered. If he had income after returning to the village, the first thing would be to have blacksmith Li forge more arrowheads. A gun was beyond his means for now, but the bow had the advantages of silence and not scattering game over a wide area. Even once he had a hunting gun later, for hares, pheasants, foxes, raccoon dogs, or precious pelted sables, the bow and arrow would still be the better choice. Especially for the likes of sable, silver-black fox, snow fox, and snow hare, what was truly valuable was often not the meat but the intact pelt. Gunshot would ruin the hide, whereas an arrow left a relatively concentrated wound. If he could take them alive, the value rose higher still. So Li Qingshan didn't regard this bow as a stopgap until he bought a gun, but as a core tool for long-term use. Over the next dozen-odd minutes, the jade gourd didn't warm again. Though minnows and forest frogs could be seen in the stream, there was no obvious large game nearby. Just as Li Qingshan was about to head back, Da Huang suddenly sprang out on his own, bit the neck of a third hare, and delivered the quarry before him. In under an hour, 2 arrows and 1 dog had yielded 3 hares. Li Qingshan couldn't yet determine whether the jade gourd was sensing game or simply bringing him luck. On the first warming, Da Huang had also spotted the hare. On the second, only he had found the target from the hint. This phenomenon still needed further verifying over the coming days. If the warming truly corresponded to nearby game, this sect leader's token was worth far more than any hunting dog. A hound had to smell the scent first, and wind, rain, and terrain all affected its judgment. The jade gourd seemed to alert its master directly the moment a target appeared. But Li Qingshan wouldn't draw conclusions from 2 coincidences. One of the most dangerous habits in the mountains was mistaking chance for a reliable rule. Next time it warmed, he had to record the distance, direction, and whether Da Huang reacted at the same time, then work out the conditions step by step. He brought the 3 hares back to camp, where Da Huang was guarding a large heap of timber. On seeing the game, the 1.90-plus strong man gaped for a good while, and even reached out to feel them, making sure Li Qingshan wasn't passing off something else's game. An experienced hunter might come back empty-handed after a day in the mountains. Li Qingshan, on his first trip, had taken 3 in under an hour, entirely beyond Da Huang's imagination. From that moment on, Da Huang no longer had the slightest doubt about, do whatever Brother Shan says. Li Qingshan had him dig a pit and light a fire to handle the hare meat and organs. The organs went to Da Huang as an extra meal, while the hare meat was roasted straight. He himself began building the Tangzifang, the shelter for overnighting. Hunters who stayed in the mountains long-term generally used a Tangzifang as a base, radiating out to hunt the surrounding area. If they pushed deeper, they'd often build another every 15 to 20 kilometers, both to overnight and to store some supplies. A proper Tangzifang was about 10 square meters, its floor raised to guard against damp, then framed with straight branches, bound with vines, and insulated with dry grass. With the sky about to darken, Li Qingshan hadn't time to build a large one, and put up only a simple shelter of about 5 square meters, barely fitting 2 people. He'd expand a sturdier one at noon the next day. This small shelter could later be used to temporarily store game. Da Huang looked at the finished shelter and again suspected Li Qingshan had secretly taken a hunt leader as master over the years behind his back. The frame was stable, the floor damp-proof, the technique more practiced than some old hunters he'd seen. Li Qingshan only said such skill was nothing. Get through tonight first. After the sun went down, the forest quickly changed its face. The calls of nameless animals came in waves from afar. Branches and leaves rustled now and then deep in the brush, and the darkness seemed to shorten every distance. The campfire became the camp's only clear boundary. Da Huang lay quietly by the fire, ears still tuned to all around. Li Qingshan had Da Huang gather and handle the blood, hare skins, and inedible remains together, not toss them carelessly beside the Tangzafang. A campfire could drive off some beasts, but it wasn't absolute safety. Lure a large predator to the door with the smell of blood, and no matter how sturdy the branch shelter, it couldn't withstand a single charge. With the Tangzafang finished, Li Qingshan announced they'd roast all 3 hares. Da Zhuang was stunned and thrilled. Back in the village, even during holidays and festivals, a whole family wouldn't dare eat 3 rabbits in a single sitting. But Li Qingshan had it all figured out. Rabbit meat would replenish the energy he burned training and hunting the next day. In summer, game spoiled fast, and hauling unprocessed meat around just added weight and drew predators with the smell. On top of that, with the jade gourd and Big Yellow around, tonight's 3 rabbits were probably just an appetizer. He didn't hog all the meat for himself and Da Zhuang, either. Big Yellow had run all day, tracking and taking down the kills, so the organs and some scraps went to the dog first. A hunting hound wasn't some tireless tool. When it went hungry, its nose and speed both dropped off. A hunter who only cared about preserving his catch and wouldn't feed his dog would be the one paying for it when it mattered most. The coals licked at the rabbit meat, fat slowly beating and dripping. 2 young men who'd grown up on watery sweet potato soup sat by the fire, smelling real, all-you-can-eat meat for the first time in their lives. Da Zhuang stared at the spit, swallowing non-stop, asking over and over if they were really going to finish it all in one night. Li Qingshan told him to eat up. The real work that needed strength started tomorrow morning. Tonight was about letting his body get used to meat, and about giving himself another round of his health cultivation forms after dark to see whether all that protein and fat could speed up the recovery of his pure yang true qi. That one meal changed both their mindsets. Da Zhuang started to believe that following Li Qingshan really could pull wealth out of these mountains. And Li Qingshan, for the first time, brought all his pieces together: his past life experience, the bow his sister-in-law had given him, the Zhao family's hunting dog, and the mysterious jade gourd. As long as each of these resources played its part, that 40 yuan debt no longer looked as impossible as the villagers imagined. And the jade gourd against Li Qingshan's chest still held a faint warmth beneath his shirt, one that hadn't quite faded. Whether that warmth meant good luck, a warning, or some ability he'd never truly understood, the answer would show itself soon enough on the next hunt. Da Zhuang had no idea anything was off about the jade gourd. He was a lot more focused on the 3 roasting rabbits in front of him. Hunters rarely ate their own catch like this. Game got hauled to market and traded for grain, salt, cloth, and medicine money. Day to day, the family still lived on coarse grain, wild vegetables, and pickles. The reason was simple and practical. Hunting had no steady payoff. You might come home loaded today and not see a single animal for the next 10 days. And if a man got hurt up in the mountains, he'd be living off whatever cash he'd managed to save. But Li Qingshan had decided to keep all 3 rabbits, about 13 caddies total. After you took off the hides, bones, and organs, the actual meat came to just over 7 caddies, and roasting shrank it even more. Da Zhuang stood nearly 2 meters tall. Putting away more than a caddy in one sitting was nothing for him. And Li Qingshan burned even more than that after practicing his forms. Sold off, the meat would have fetched maybe a yuan and change, but eating it might mean recovering his pure yang true qi days sooner. The math was completely different from a normal hunter's. An ordinary man would sell the rabbit meat and turn it into a few days' worth of coarse grain for the family. Li Qingshan ate it instead, speeding up his cultivation, then used the extra strength and his medical skills to earn far more than a few rabbits were ever worth. The catch was he had to prove the mountains offered a steady supply. Otherwise, this kind of eating really would just be burning through everything. Of the 3 rabbits, the first ran about 4 caddies, the second about 5, the third a little over 4. The hides were kept whole, the bones could go into soup, the organs fed the dog. Very little actually went to waste. Li Qingshan just refused to do what he'd always done before: trade away the most nourishing food for cash, and leave himself and his family scraping by on thin broth. Da Zhuang finally came around to the logic. The rabbit meat over the fire browned and gave off a rich, greasy aroma. Big Yellow had already finished off 3 sets of organs and lay contentedly by the flames. Li Qingshan and Da Zhuang tore into the meat while, out in the darkness, animal calls rose and fell all around them. Once he'd eaten his fill, Li Qingshan didn't go straight to sleep. He got up and ran through his health cultivation forms beside the firelight, every stance clean and flowing, every move connecting seamlessly. Da Zhuang watched, dumbstruck. His own grandfather had been a fighting monk in his youth and had thrown punches his whole life. but Li Qingshan's movements looked even more practiced than the old man's. Li Qingshan asked if he wanted to learn. Dazhuang waved him off. His grandfather had trained for years and never amounted to anything with it, so he'd rather just lie down and save his energy. Li Qingshan didn't push. The forms looked slow, but actually running through them ate up a staggering amount of energy. With Dazhuang's appetite and his family's means, without a steady supply of meat to fuel it, training like that would sooner wreck his body than help it. Li Qingshan would run through the forms a few times, then head back to the fire to keep eating, refuel, and go again. He kept up that cycle until around 10 at night, when he finally turned in with Dazhuang and Big Yellow inside the lean-to, leaving the fire burning outside. Watching him eat and train, Dazhuang finally understood why Li Qingshan had dared to roast 3 whole rabbits at once. The meat seemed to get burned straight off by the forms. He'd finish a meal stuffed, and after a stretch of training his stomach would be hollow again. For an ordinary man, an appetite like that would just be waste. On Li Qingshan, it turned into training you could see with your own eyes. The lean-to was low, packed with dry grass, with a wooden frame lifting the sleeping spot up off the damp ground. 2 men lying side by side already made it cramped, but Big Yellow still came inside. Left outside, the dog might not be reachable in time if wolves or big game showed up in the night. Kept close, its ears and nose made the most reliable alarm they had. Around 2 in the morning, Li Qingshan woke on his own after less than 4 hours of sleep, yet he felt completely rested. Ever since his body-refining art had started reworking his body, he recovered at a rate no ordinary person could match. Out here, summer dawns broke around 4, and early morning was both the best window to train and the peak time for animal activity. So he woke Dazhuang up too. Dazhuang went back to cutting straight branches for the shelter, while Li Qingshan finished the last of the rabbit and ran through his forms over and over in the dark. Past 3, hunger crept back into his gut, but his body had hit its peak. Before they set out, Li Qingshan laid down a rule. This time they'd follow the stream, and they'd be back at camp by 10 a.m. at the latest. Dazhuang was still savoring the memory of last night's rabbit, hoping only to bag 3 more. Li Qingshan told him that today he was going to show him a roe deer. They hadn't even reached the stream when the jade gourd went warm first. Li Qingshan instantly softened his steps and signaled for Dazhuang to keep quiet. Sure enough, up ahead by some tender grass was a plump rabbit, close to 6 catties, bigger than all 3 from the night before. The target sat about 40 meters out. He raised his bow and loosed, the arrow punching clean through its neck and pinning it to the ground. Big Yellow trotted the catch back, unusually excited. Ever since Zhao Zhanshan got hurt, the family could only feed the dog coarse grain. After putting away 3 sets of organs the day before, this was probably its most satisfying stretch in a long time. What surprised Dazhuang wasn't the hit. It was that Li Qingshan barely seemed to aim at all. Li Qingshan told him he'd already read the distance, the wind, and the target's movement before he ever drew. Once the bow was pulled, all that was left was seizing the moment. Then he officially handed the job of dressing the rabbit over to Dazhuang. Li Qingshan first showed him how to bleed the carcass out from the wound, how to cut without ruining the hide, which organs to keep and which to toss, and why the bloody dirt had to be turned into the pit. The hide got rolled first side in to keep it from picking up more mud and water. And the moment you pulled the arrowhead, you checked it. If it had bent, the next shot would fly off true. Dazhuang took it seriously. He knew his archery couldn't touch Li Qingshan's, so the least he could do was take over the follow-up work. If Li Qingshan had to dress every single kill himself, the most valuable window of the morning would get thrown away for nothing. Skinning, bleeding, gutting, burying the remains, every step had its order. Dazhuang would handle the processing and hauling. Li Qingshan would handle the finding and the killing. For the first time, the 2 of them had a clear division of labor out in the mountains. 10 minutes later, the jade gourd warmed again. Another rabbit had appeared, this one about 70 meters out. That was already past the 60-pound bow's most reliable killing range of 50 meters. The farther an arrow flew, the more the wind pushed it off course, and the smaller the target got in your sights. Dazhuang didn't think there was any chance. But drawing on the instincts from his past life, Li Qingshan raised the arc of his shot and let the long arrow curve through the air, and it still dropped right into the rabbit's neck. A neck hit didn't just end the animal fast, it also preserved as much of the hide as possible. A single pelt wasn't worth much, but stacked up, they added up to real income. Standing 70 meters out, Dazhuang looked back toward where Li Qingshan had shot from and still couldn't wrap his head around it. At that range, a 60-pound bow had clearly lost a lot of its power, and the arrow's path dropped off. Li Qingshan had to account for the wind and put the arrow into a moving, fist-sized patch of neck. For an ordinary hunter, this was the kind of shot you'd rather pass up than even attempt. Li Qingshan didn't let it go to his head, though. A long-range hit like that took experience, but it also took the luck of the target not suddenly changing direction. If he'd been facing a roe deer or a wild boar, he'd never have gambled his game and his arrow on the same kind of shot. Not far along, Big Yellow clamped onto the leg of Li Qingshan's pants and, following a scent along the ground, led them to two rabbits in the brush. The jade gourd stayed cold this time, which meant the dog could still turn up targets on its own. Dazhuang groaned that they'd only get to keep one, but Li Qingshan knocked two arrows at once. Firing a double shot cut down on both power and accuracy, so it was no good for mid-sized game, but for rabbits at close range, it was plenty. The two arrow streaks pinned both targets almost simultaneously. A pheasant burst up out of the brush at the same time. Dazhuang had barely gotten out, what a shame, when Li Qingshan's third arrow already caught the bird mid-flight. The pheasant flapped twice and dropped, and Big Yellow ferried all three kills back to their feet. That string of shots won Dazhuang over completely. Only now did he notice that nearly all of Li Qingshan's arrows avoided the body, sparing the meat and protecting the fur. Control like that couldn't be explained by luck alone. At market, a common rabbit went for about 4 mao 7, so 2 came to 9 mao 4. Pheasant was a little cheaper, around 4 mao 3 apiece. In just those few minutes, they'd already brought in over a yuan. To Dazhuang, who'd never once eaten a bowl of plain white rice in his life, the trees and grass of this old forest suddenly looked like they were made of money. While he dressed the two rabbits and the pheasant, Dazhuang kept running the numbers. A caddy of rice cost about a mao, so this one haul was worth roughly 10 caddies of it. If they could take 10 rabbits a day, that was over 4 yuan, about 40 caddies of rice. For the first time, the number made him feel like his own two hands might actually put a meal of pure, uncut rice on his family's table. Li Qingshan reminded him not to look only at the sale price. Arrowheads, salt, rope, the food they packed in, all of it cost money, and the game didn't just walk up to you every day. Most important of all, a man had to make it out alive to sell any of it. Charging into dangerous terrain over a 4 mao rabbit, or tracking on after dark, made no sense no matter how much you stood to earn. Right then and there, he decided that once they'd sold everything, he was buying rice and cooking an actual pot of dry rice, not just drinking rice broth. Li Qingshan was thinking further ahead. He wanted to buy cloth for his mother and Lu Guixiang to sew new clothes, get them shoes that actually fit, and add a few little treats and some vanishing cream. Ever since the two women had married into the Li family, they'd worn nothing but other people's hand-me-downs, never once getting a full outfit of their own. If this batch of game sold well, the third branch of the family could finally spend money on itself for once. The two of them kept working their way along the stream and the woods beside it. They'd planned to head back to camp at 10, but started back a little after 7. Dazhuang simply couldn't carry anything more. When they tallied it up, even Li Qingshan was a little surprised. In a single morning, they'd taken 11 rabbits, 5 pheasants, and 1 masked palm civet. From the stream to the woods that morning, they hadn't relied on the jade gourd every time. Some rabbits they'd found after the gourd warmed. Some Big Yellow had tracked by scent along the ground. A few pheasants had been flushed by the bowstring and their footsteps and picked off on the fly. Because the sources were so different, Li Qingshan grew even more careful about keeping the three abilities straight. The jade gourd flagged the anomalies, Big Yellow handled the tracking, and his own archery turned those finds into actual kills. The rabbits and pheasants got sorted by size, the pelts laid out in the shade, the civet stored separately. Dazhuang's first instinct was to just feed all the organs to the dog raw, but Li Qingshan had him roast them first. Raw meat could carry parasites and disease. Big Yellow was their eyes out in the mountains. They couldn't let it get sick just to save a little effort. Dazhuang's first thought was that they should head back to the village. The haul had already blown past anything he'd imagined before setting out. Bringing it home would be enough to shut his parents up. But Li Qingshan didn't think it was enough. Everything together came to under 100 caddies, and between what the two of them ate along the way and the weight lost to hides, bones, and organs, the amount they could actually sell was less than it looked. The 40 yuan debt, the house repairs, and outfitting the whole family were all waiting on cash. Now that they'd found a good hunting ground, they couldn't just pack it in over one lucky first trip. Dazhuang couldn't bring himself to keep eating meat. He'd rather gnaw on parched flour. People raised on poverty look at game and think of the price first, not the taste. Li Qingshan didn't force him. He just had him roast up several rabbits and their organs. After resting a bit, Li Qingshan put away 2 whole rabbits in one go, and Big Yellow ate until its belly bulged. The masked palm civet, also called a gem-faced civet, made even better soup stewed down. They hadn't brought a pot, only Dazhuang's army canteen, so Li Qingshan had him cut the meat into small chunks and slow simmer it in there. Next trip in, they'd bring not just erzwang but a pot, salt, and more seasoning. The canteen only held so much. A single civet had to be cooked in several batches. You couldn't cram the chunks in too tight, or the meat wouldn't cook through once the water boiled. Dazhuang tended the fire, catching the smell of the soup but too reluctant to eat any, until Li Qingshan told him that in summer this kind of meat spoiled even faster than rabbit. Only then did he finally agree to share a bowl. The reason Dazhuang brought up his younger brother, Erzwang, was that the workload had already outgrown a 2-man setup. One man handled the killing. The other had to dress the catch, cut wood, build the shelter, and haul everything. And the moment a big haul came in, it was too much to keep up with. Erzwang was tall and lean like his brother, but strong, and he did what his brother told him. With 3 of them next time, they could also take turns keeping watch and cut down on nighttime exhaustion. At midday, Dazhuang went back to felling trees and expanding the lean-to. Li Qingshan, meanwhile, topped off on meat and ran through his forms again and again. Over about 2 hours, most of the rabbit he'd just eaten had already burned away, so he finished off the last one and set his stance once more. When the form flowed into its critical point, a faint warm current finally stirred inside him at last. It wasn't the ordinary heat of exertion, it was true qi, flowing along the meridians, something his mind's technique could actually guide. Pure young true qi. In his past life, Li Qingshan had trained under an old Taoist for 3 months before he'd first produced true qi, and the master had still called his talent decent. This time it had taken only a few days, clearly thanks to a full life's worth of experience and a steady flood of meat. He knew exactly how each movement should channel his force and where the breath should turn. His body only had to retrace a path it already knew by heart. The true qi was still incredibly thin, nowhere near enough to hold for long. But it meant the 13 needles and pulse reading by true qi were now within reach, at least at a basic level. The next stage was to keep accumulating it until it gathered into a bead the size of a mung bean. At that point, whether for cultivation, healing, or fending off the cold, everything would be far more stable. After stopping, Li Qingshan checked it several times over. The warm current really could move from his dantian out to his arms at his mind's command, but it couldn't travel far before dispersing. If he read someone's pulse now, it'd only work for a quick scan. If he forced the needles, it'd be good for minor ailments at most. Zhao Zhanshan's internal injuries were still far beyond what he could handle. Even so, this was way faster than he'd expected. As long as he kept eating meat and training, he could pair ordinary medicine with a little true qi and soon start treating common injuries and illnesses for the villagers. The clinic still had no one who truly knew medicine. Down the line, this skill wouldn't just earn money. It would also help the third branch of the family carve out some standing in the village. A little after 4 in the afternoon, the big lean-to was finished, roughly 10 square meters, enough for 2 men to rest and to store their gear. The old 5-square-meter shelter got turned into a game storeroom, its entrance blocked off with timber to keep small animals from making off with the catch. Once the heat let up, the 2 of them headed out to hunt again. 10 minutes in with nothing to show for it, Li Qingshan felt oddly restless. Dazhuang turned it back on him, pointing out that most hunters going a whole day without running into much game was the norm. Their morning haul had been absurd, so there was no way there'd be an animal waiting every few steps. He'd barely finished saying it when the jade gourd went warm again. Not far off, a hornless doe roe deer was grazing, about 60 catties. A roe deer was mid-sized game, worth close to 20 yuan whole, as much as dozens of rabbits. Li Qingshan immediately had Dazhuang and Big Yellow drop down while he used the brush to creep in a little at a time. Roe deer had sharp ears. The slightest sound would bring their heads up, and when they fled, they'd often stop short to look back, which was how they'd earned the nickname Silly Roe Deer. But faced with a real hunter, the animals were anything but slow. For a 60-pound bow to reliably drop a roe deer, 30 meters was the mark to hit. Li Qingshan controlled his breathing and closed the gap from 50 meters down to under 40. With maybe 37 yards left, the doe suddenly lifted her head and looked straight in his direction. Dazhuang's heart sank. He was sure the deer was about to bolt. But another rabbit chose that moment to dart out of the brush and pull the doe's attention away. Once she confirmed the noise was just a rabbit, she actually dropped her head and went back to grazing. Li Qingshan seized the chance to close to 30 meters, drew full, and aimed for the neck. The first arrow punched through the roe deer's throat. The animal ran a few wounded steps and went down. The second arrow followed right after, into the rabbit from before, another clean hit. Dazhuang hauled the roe deer back to camp while Li Qingshan bled it on the spot to keep the meat from turning, saving the full skinning for the lean-to. Gunshots tended to leave holes and scorch marks on a hide. A plain damaged roe deer pelt might only bring 4 yuan in change, while a good one ran around 8. Li Qingshan's pelt, with its single clean neck wound, was in excellent shape. With the right buyer, it might even fetch as much as 15 yuan. Looking at the meat alone, a 60-catty roe deer, minus the blood, organs, bones, and waste, still had a sellable portion worth close to a dozen plus yuan. Add a whole, undamaged hide, and the total value could top 20 yuan, which meant this one arrow had just about wiped out half of Li Hu's 40 yuan debt. But Li Qingshan didn't rush to figure the net profit. First, he checked whether the arrow had cut into any important part of the hide beyond the windpipe, then taught Dazhuang not to let the fur drag across the ground while carrying it. Selling pelts was all about condition. One unnecessary scrape gave a buyer an excuse to knock down the price. That raised a new problem, too. In the dead of summer, meat spoiled fast. They'd have to dig a cellar at camp as soon as possible, and next trip they'd need to pack more salt to cure whatever meat they couldn't haul out right away. Otherwise, the more they killed, the more they'd lose. The two of them carried the first roe deer back and headed out to scout again. A loop along the stream turned up nothing, but the jade gourd went warm once more. Before long, the sound of branches and leaves snapping came rushing toward them through the woods, and 2 roe deer bolted straight in their direction, one of them with a claw wound across its body. The wound was clearly from a wolf. These 2 deer weren't out foraging. They were fleeing a predator nearby. Li Qingshan knew a double shot didn't have the stopping power to reliably kill 2 mid-sized animals, so he split the targets. He'd take one, and Dazhuang would cut off the other with the red-tasseled spear. The 2 of them dropped low into the grass and let the deer close from 30 meters to 20, then to 10. Li Qingshan rose first and loosed, dropping the first one. Dazhuang charged out right after with a yell, driving his spear deep into the second deer's body. A 60-catty animal at a full run hit like a truck. Dazhuang got shoved back several steps and lost his grip on the spear, but the roe deer was already down, badly wounded. It was the first mid-sized animal Dazhuang had ever killed with his own hands. Adrenaline left his arms shaking and his breath ragged, but his whole face was lit up. Li Qingshan didn't let him bask in it for long. Dressed the game first, then straight back to camp. That spear thrust of Dazhuang's hadn't been pretty. The force of the running deer had nearly knocked him flat, and the spear had torn out of his hands. If he'd struck a little off, the wounded animal might have run off with the spear in it, or even turned and rammed him. Li Qingshan gave him credit for the nerve, but pointed out that next time he needed a stable brace against the butt of the spear, he couldn't take the whole impact on his arms alone once he'd committed. Still, the kill meant something big to Dazhuang. He was no longer just the flunky hauling carcasses on his back. For the first time, he was a real hunter who'd taken part in the killing. And when they split the earnings later, this roe deer couldn't simply be chalked up as Li Qingshan's doing alone. One afternoon, 3 roe deer plus a rabbit. Even minus the blood and organs, the 3 deer still came to about 150 catties of meat, and once you added the rabbits, pheasants, pelts, and the palm civet, there was no way the 2 of them could carry it all back in one trip. By a fairly conservative estimate, 1 roe deer's sellable meat and a plain hide could bring in around 15 yuan, so 3 came close to 45. If all 3 pelts stayed intact, the real income might run even higher. This batch alone put Li Hu's principal and interest within sight. The 11 rabbits, 5 pheasants, and the civet up front could go toward daily necessities. But until game turned into cash, it was all just weight that would rot. Sun, flies, rain, wild animals. Every one of them could shrink the numbers on paper. Li Qingshan wouldn't let Dazhuang get lost in the excitement. He had the deer rebled and hung to air out at once, keeping the hides and meat separate so heat and damp wouldn't build up together. Li Qingshan wasn't willing to wreck his body just to show off. The weight an ordinary person could carry over a long haul was about 1/10 of their own body weight. Push it to 1/4, and both speed and stamina fell off sharply. Go past 40%, and you were asking to hurt your lower back, shoulders, and joints. Dazhuang might be tall and broad, but he actually weighed only around 150 catties. Li Qingshan stood 1 meter 85, weighed about 130, and had to carry the bow and arrows on top of that. All told, the meat the two of them could safely haul out came to only about 75 caddies. Plenty of mountain porters would shoulder 80 or even over 100 caddies for the money, and in their youth they'd seem to hold up fine, but in old age their backs, shoulders, and joints usually ended up badly deformed. Li Qingshan knew medicine, and he certainly wasn't about to treat his and Dazhuang's bodies as something to burn through just to save a trip. A hunter who hauled loads by overdrawing himself every time usually found the money he earned wasn't even enough to cover the injuries. So he sent Dazhuang back to the village light to fetch his father and his younger brother Erzwang for help. For speed, he was to carry no game on the way and keep the red-tasseled spear in hand for self-defense. Dazhuang suggested taking part of the load back first, but Li Qingshan flatly refused. 30-some caddies of meat would slow his pace, and the smell of blood could draw wolves. Right now the most valuable thing wasn't getting one hunk of meat back early. It was getting the extra hands here as fast as possible. Running back to the village empty-handed and returning with help was far safer than trudging alone under a load. At the pace they'd set coming in, a normal one-way trip took most of a day. If Dazhuang pushed hard, he could reach the village before dark, but coming back would definitely take until the next day. Li Qingshan would have to guard the camp alone through the night, which meant stocking up on firewood ahead of time and sealing all the game inside the small shelter. Li Qingshan had actually thought about sending Big Yellow along too. The wolf's claw marks on the wounded deer meant there were wolves nearby, and traveling alone after dark was extremely risky. But Dazhuang said he and Big Yellow weren't familiar with each other. If the dog took off along the way, it'd just slow him down. After weighing it, Li Qingshan agreed and kept Big Yellow at camp as an alarm. Once Dazhuang set out, Li Qingshan locked all the main game inside the little lean-to and stayed close to camp. Before evening, he took a few more rabbits, pheasants, and a palm civet, but didn't run into anything pricier. No musk deer, sable, or fox. He didn't stop entirely just because camp was already piled with catch. The time spent waiting for the extra hands was valuable too, and as long as he didn't stray too far from the lean-to, every animal he took was that much more income. Still, Li Qingshan kept his range small, returning at intervals to check the shelter and make sure the smell of blood hadn't lured any predators in. Musk deer, sable, and quality fox pelts were worth far more than ordinary rabbits and pheasants, but they were rare to begin with. He couldn't expect a prize animal to show up every single time the jade gourd went warm. Li Qingshan kept reminding himself that steadily stacking up common game was more reliable than chasing one big score. After dark, he stuck strictly to the plan and stopped venturing deeper into the woods. He roasted 2 pheasants by the fire and simmered civet soup in the army canteen. Once he'd eaten his fill, he went back to his forms, and that thread of pure yang true qi inside him grew, bit by bit, as his mind's technique guided it. With Dazhuang gone, all the watchkeeping and odd jobs fell on Li Qingshan alone. He stocked up on firewood ahead of time, split the blaze into an open flame and a reserve of coals, set the hatchet within arm's reach, and laid out the bow and arrows in order. The moment Big Yellow locked onto some direction and stayed alert, he'd be able to grab the right weapon instantly. The moonlight in the forest was carved into scattered flecks by the dense canopy, and deep in the brush something kept moving. Li Qingshan thought of the old Taoist from his past life, wondering whether he'd cross paths with him again this time around, and whether he could head off the disaster his master would later suffer. Just then, a cry for help came from far off. A young woman was running barefoot through the woods, the soles of her feet cut by dead branches and stones, the bell at her ankle ringing without pause. Her name was Wang Chunxiao, a descendant of an outsider family that had moved into Shirshi village 30 years back. The village was dominated by the Li and Zhao clans, and it was no easy thing for an outsider family to find solid footing there. Right now, Wang Chunxiao had no time to worry about any of that. She'd already gotten lost in the woods, and a wild wolf was on her tail. In her panic, she'd fallen and twisted her ankle, and now she could only watch as the dark shape closed in. She'd started out with shoes on, but after wandering so long she'd lost them somewhere without knowing where, and now had to run barefoot over gravel, dead branches, and thorny brush. The little bell at her ankle rang out sharp and clear in the silent night. It could bring rescuers, but it was also broadcasting her location to the beast tracking her the whole time. The wolf hadn't pounced right away. Instead, it kept its distance and gave chase, waiting for its prey to burn through its strength. The more Wang Chunxiao panicked, the less she could read the terrain, and her final fall was exactly the opening the predator had been waiting for. When Li Qingshan heard the cries, he first brought Big Yellow in close to confirm the situation. Visibility was too poor in the dark for him to be sure of killing the wolf with one arrow, so he could only loose a shot near its legs to scare it off. The arrow grazed the wolf's leg while Big Yellow's furious barking and the torch closed in at the same time. The wolf sized up the risk and finally turned and slipped back into the woods. Only then did Li Qingshan recognize the person sprawled on the ground. He asked Wang Chunxiao whether she'd come running into the old forest in the dead of night to hunt, or to serve herself up as dinner for the wolves. Having just barely escaped death, the girl burst into tears the moment she heard it. For an ordinary girl on foot, walking here from Shirshi village took a very long time. Wang Chunxiao clearly hadn't just left home. She'd been wandering the woods for hours. She had no knife, no way to make fire, no markers to tell direction by. Even without a wolf, the nighttime cold and hunger would have worn her down until she was too weak to go on. Worried the crying would draw the wolf back, Li Qingshan could only scare her with a half-truth, saying if she kept it up he'd stop looking after her. Wang Chunxiao immediately clapped a hand over her mouth, leaving only the tears to keep falling. With her hurt ankle, she couldn't walk on her own. Li Qingshan didn't linger in the dark. He retrieved his arrow and carried her back to the lean-to. Her clothes had been torn by branches during the run, and the soles of her feet had plenty of small cuts. Right now, the important thing wasn't grilling her about why she'd left home. It was checking the sprain and making sure she'd live through the night. Inside the lean-to, firelight filtered in from outside. Li Qingshan had her sit on the dry grass, took off her shoes and socks, and examined her. The ankle was already out of joint. Leave it overnight, and it'd be far more trouble to deal with once the swelling set in the next day. His Taoist medicine lineage wasn't just herbal formulas and golden needles. It included massage and bone setting too. Li Qingshan first checked that no bone was broken, then used massage to loosen the muscle tension from her long run, and finally, finding the right spot, completed the reset. Massage wasn't just rubbing at the sore spot. Wang Chunxiao's feet had taken far too much walking, and the muscles in her soles and calves had gone stiff, while her right ankle was dislocated from the fall. Li Qingshan loosened the surrounding area first, confirmed the nerves and blood flow were normal, and only then did the reset, so he wouldn't cause a second injury by forcing it while everything was still tensed up. Once he'd finished, he didn't let her walk around right away, just had her put weight on it briefly to test it. A joint back in place didn't mean it was fully healed. She'd need to rest at least for the night, and she couldn't keep hiking long distances alone the next day, either. After a soft click, the right foot Wang Chunxiao hadn't dared set down was working again. She tried standing, found the pain had eased dramatically, and asked in surprise when Li Qingshan had learned medicine. Li Qingshan gave his usual explanation about an old mountain doctor, said he'd studied under the man for a while, and that the doctor had later left to wander the country. He had Wang Chunxiao sit back down and kept working on the fatigue and cuts in both feet. Otherwise, the soreness from all that running would come crashing down on her the next day. Once she'd calmed down, Wang Chunxiao finally explained. Her father was planning to marry her off to Zhao Ba, the son of the village party secretary. She didn't want it, so she'd snuck away from home. She had no clear destination. She just felt anywhere would be better than marrying Zhao Ba, and had ended up blundering into the old forest and losing all sense of direction. Li Qingshan didn't join in cursing Zhao Ba. Instead, he asked whether she'd thought about how she'd actually live once she left home. Wang Chunxiao had no answer. To make her truly grasp the danger, Li Qingshan laid it on hard. He reminded her that in the mountains there were no bystanders. A girl on her own who ran into the wrong person could be robbed, hurt, even disappear for good. And even if she met no one, wolves, bears, venomous snakes, getting lost, and starvation were all more than enough to kill her. That she'd run into him tonight was pure luck. She couldn't treat running from a marriage as the same thing as solving it. He even had her imagine that if the one who'd saved her hadn't been him, but a man who preyed on lone women, she'd have had no chance to fight back or call for help at all. The villagers would only know she'd run away from home, and her body might never be found. There was nothing wrong with refusing her father's arrangement. What was wrong was handing over her life to an unprepared escape. The warning sounded cruel, but it was closer to the truth than a line like, "A girl ought to listen to her parents." Li Qingshan wasn't telling her to marry Zhao Ba because of it. He was telling her to line up a fallback first, and then resist. His words left Wang Chunxiao shaken with second thoughts, and she finally admitted she wouldn't dare run off again with no plan, but she still refused to marry Zhao Ba. Only then did Li Qingshan start breaking down the real problem. The Wang family were outsiders, and what Wang's father was really after was the shelter and resources a party secretary's household could offer. not any genuine admiration for Zhao Ba. The betrothal gifts wouldn't come until year's end, and the wedding wouldn't be official until next year, which meant there was still time to shift the balance of interests in her father's eyes. As long as Wang Chunxiao could land a steady job, an income, or some ability that made her family value her, the Zhao family's terms would no longer be the only option. If all she could do was cry and run, her father would only become more convinced she needed to attach herself to a powerful in-law family. But if she could prove she could bring the Wangs security of her own, her bargaining position would be completely different. Li Qingshan didn't lay out the whole plan on the spot, because any approach would need Wang Chunxiao's own cooperation. For now, all he could do was confirm that what she objected to was Zhao Ba himself, and not just spite against her father. He told Wang Chunxiao that as long as she was willing to put in the work and follow his lead, he had a way to get the marriage called off. He didn't spell out the method yet, but he promised he wouldn't force her to trade one reckless gamble for her freedom. Wang Chunxiao didn't let the hope go to her head. She asked Li Qingshan straight out what helping her would cost. Li Qingshan told her to decide for herself once it was all settled. Even a single caddy of sweet potatoes would count as repayment. The answer neither took advantage of her situation nor closed off a chance to gauge her character. If Wang Chunxiao really did fob him off with one caddy of sweet potatoes in the end, then the two of them needn't get close after that. Wang Chunxiao promised in earnest that she'd never let him down. Before long, wolf howls came from outside. Li Qingshan called Big Yellow in, shut up the lean-to, walled off a safe patch with stones and wet mud, and moved the red-hot charcoal inside. The shelter walls still had gaps for ventilation, so the charcoal fumes wouldn't build up in the room. The fire outside was still going, and for the moment the wolf pack didn't dare come close. A makeshift fire pan couldn't sit directly on dry grass or a wooden floor. When Li Qingshan built the shelter, he'd already laid stone in a corner, packed wet mud beneath and around it, and shaped the edges into a shallow basin, so that even if the coals rolled they wouldn't easily set the shelter alight. The wall gaps he'd planned to seal shut with mud the next day now served instead as necessary vents. This setup proved once again that the lean-to wasn't just a random pile of branches. Fire, damp-proofing, ventilation, the width of the doorway, the sightlines for keeping watch. Every one of them had to be planned in during construction. Last night Dazhuang had thought this was just Li Qingshan showing off one more skill. Tonight, those details directly decided whether all three of them made it through safe. Wang Chunxiao hadn't eaten in a full day, and the dry rations she'd carried had been lost during the run. Li Qingshan took out a dressed rabbit, roasted it over the coals, and sprinkled it with a little salt for her. The girl, who'd gone months without a scrap of meat, ate almost to tears, and the rabbit was gone in no time. Meanwhile, Dazhuang made it back to Shirshi village before nightfall. Dazhuang's parents were sitting in the main room, waiting for word. His mother had long griped about him running around with Li Qingshan, and his father, though he figured a man willing to go up the mountain wasn't a true good-for-nothing, still worried that two young men with no seasoned old hunter to lead them would come to grief sooner or later. The couple had already agreed to forbid Dazhuang from going into the mountains with Li Qingshan again once he got home. Dazhuang's father only wanted to pass his own trade down to his two sons, so they'd farm honestly and settle into families of their own in peace. The old forest had swallowed too many people over the years. Even a fierce band of horse bandits that had once made trouble had gone in and never come out. The way he saw it, one safe return could be called luck, but no one could guarantee a second or a third trip would go the same way. Dazhuang kicked the courtyard gate open and came charging in, soaked through with sweat, leaves still stuck to him. He couldn't spare a thought for the scolding coming his way. First he rushed into the room and smacked the sound asleep Erzwang awake, telling his brother to throw on some clothes and get outside. Erzwang had been dead asleep, and after suddenly taking a slap, he sat up and couldn't make sense of the situation for a good while. Annoyed at how slow he was, Dazhuang smacked him again. Their father, hearing the commotion, hurried over, and seeing Dazhuang stride toward him, instinctively covered his own face, afraid his frantic, addle-headed eldest might slap him awake right along with everyone else. Once Dazhuang got the whole story out, the three of them, who a moment ago had been ready to lay into him, all fell silent. The hall he described was so huge it sounded more like tall tale than truth. Yet he was too frantic to be making it up, and even offered to bet his own future trips up the mountain on it. His parents still figured he'd lost his mind. It wasn't until Dazhuang rattled off every last item: 3 roe deer, 11 rabbits, 5 pheasants, the palm civet, and everything he'd bagged after, that no one in the room believed him at all. Even if Zhao Zhanshan hadn't been hurt, he couldn't necessarily have taken that much in a few days. Anxious to move the game, Dazhuang swore he'd never go up the mountain with Li Qingshan again as his guarantee. Only then did his father decide to go take a look with him. But no sooner had the family gotten ready than rain began to fall outside. Dazhuang wanted to throw on a raincoat and leave at once, but his father flatly stopped him. Late night, a downpour, and slick mountain trails all at once. You could lose your way even on a familiar route. The game wouldn't all go bad from a few hours' delay, but if a man slipped and got hurt on the trail or wandered off, the loss would be far greater. They could only wait for the rain to ease. The call left Dazhuang on edge, but he didn't force his way out again. Mountain routes weren't village roads. In many places you found your way only by the shape of the trees, the slope of the ground, and temporary markers. Rain would wash out footprints and knock down markers, and the dark made every distant landmark vanish. Making it back alone that day had already drained Dazhuang badly, and if he set out at night with his father and Erzwang right then, he wouldn't even have the strength left to look after them both. The rain pushed Li Qingshan's camp into real crisis, too. At first the drops only pattered on the leaves, but in a blink it became a torrential downpour. The fire outside the lean-to went out fast, and wolf howls rang out one after another in the dark. The rustle of branches and leaves closed in from several directions at once. Going by the sounds, Li Qingshan reckoned there were about 10 wolves nearby. With the firelight gone, the pack began testing the shelter. Claws scratched and slammed against the wooden walls, and rain kept seeping in through the gaps. The last of the charcoal inside got soaked, threw up a curl of gray smoke, and went out completely. The wolves didn't rush all at once. They circled the shelter, occasionally probing the wall's strength with their claws, then let out cries from different directions. That kind of waiting wore a man down more than a straight attack, because Li Qingshan couldn't tell which side the next hit would come from, or how long the pack would hold out. Big Yellow kept low by the door, neither lunging wildly nor barking nonstop. It knew the numbers outside far outmatched it, and only bared a threat when a wolf got too close. If Big Yellow lost its head and charged out, the pack would have it surrounded and split apart in no time. Li Qingshan had only finished this big lean-to that afternoon. Had they still been in the flimsy 5-square-meter shelter, its thin walls might not have held up under the pack's relentless digging. As it was, even if the wolves bit open a gap, he could hold the narrow entrance with his hatchet and keep them from pouring in all at once. The problem came down to warmth. The summer downpour drove wind through the wall gaps, and neither of them was dressed heavily. Li Qingshan could hold his body temperature with his newly born pure yang true qi, but Wang Chunxiao had long gone underfed and had just been through a full day of running. She was soon shivering so hard her teeth chattered. Once the charcoal died, the temperature inside the shelter kept dropping. Rain seeped in along the roof and walls, and part of the dry grass turned damp. If Wang Chunxiao's core temperature kept falling, she'd first grow sluggish and foggy-minded, and then, even if the pack left, she might not make it safely down the mountain. Li Qingshan had no choice but to pull her close and run his true qi to hold her warmth. This wasn't some romantic scene. It was the most direct way to survive under the risk of hypothermia. Wang Chunxiao was tense at first, and only gradually stopped shivering once she felt the steady warmth. Li Qingshan kept the hatchet in his grip the whole time, his ears on the sounds beyond the walls. If any wolf actually broke through, he had to strike the instant it did. Big Yellow held the door, letting out a low warning now and then. The three of them toughed it out in the dark for who knew how long before the rain finally eased. Having gotten no prey, the pack drifted off as the rain stopped. Worried they were still lying in wait nearby, Li Qingshan didn't rashly open the door. He only closed his eyes and rested a moment under Big Yellow's watch. Not until there'd been no scratching for a long while and Big Yellow had stopped staring at the door did Li Qingshan judge that the most dangerous stretch was past. He still didn't light any obvious fire or step out to check, in case the pack had only pulled back a distance to watch. Many of the mountain's deaths happened at exactly the moment the danger seemed over and the hunter let his guard down. At dawn, sunlight streamed in through the wall gaps, and when the two of them woke, they realized they were still leaning against each other. Wang Chunxiao hurriedly got up and thanked him. Li Qingshan deliberately asked how she planned to repay a life saved, and she asked back what he wanted. Li Qingshan didn't name a price on the spot, only saying they'd talk about it later. Once outside, he first checked the wolf tracks around them, then inspected the small lean-to where the game was stored. The door and walls were undamaged, and the meat and pelts inside were intact. Only then did he truly breathe a sigh of relief. The muddy ground was covered in a tangle of prints, proof that last night really hadn't been one or two lone wolves. Fresh gouges had been raked into part of the wooden walls, but thankfully the straight branches and vines hadn't broken. Li Qingshan decided they'd head down the mountain the moment Dazhuang's family arrived. The pack had this camp's location memorized now. It was no place to keep lingering with a pile of fresh meat. The two of them got a fire going again. Li Qingshan boiled soup in the canteen and roasted 4 more pheasants. Wang Chunxiao hadn't finished even one before he'd polished off 3. Pure yang true qi needed constant replenishing, and his appetite had grown right along with his training. Once he'd eaten his fill, he ran through his health cultivation forms in the morning light. The true qi had grown a shade stronger than the night before, and the jade gourd at his chest slipped out over his collar mid-motion. For the first time, Li Qingshan clearly saw the gourd's surface seem to drink in the dawn, a faint light flickering at its center. The light wasn't harsh, more like morning sun settling into jade and not immediately fading. Cupping the gourd in his palm, he could feel that the warmth was different from when it found game. Game drawing near brought a brief, sharp heat, while the dawn's light brought a slow, steady warmth. The two reactions likely corresponded to different functions. That meant the gourd's changes weren't tied to game alone. It grew warm at night to flag a target and responded to the sun at dawn. Whether there was any link between the two phenomena, he couldn't yet judge. Li Qingshan didn't rush to take the gourd off and study it. That the sect leader's token had come along with his rebirth was already beyond all reason. Any untested way of using it might carry a price. He decided to keep wearing it against his skin, only observing its natural reactions. No forcing blood onto it, no striking it, no taking it apart. Holding back with an unknown treasure mattered more than destroying it out of curiosity. As for Wang Chunxiao, for the first time she got a clear look. The young man with the bad name in the village could shoot a bow, build a shelter, set bones, hold off a wolf pack through the night, and practiced a set of forms that plainly weren't just flailing around. She began to understand that Li Qingshan's abilities didn't match his old reputation at all. And in Li Qingshan's eyes, Wang Chunxiao wasn't just a girl who needed rescuing, either. She dared to defy her father's arrangement, which meant she had a mind of her own. Running off into the mountains meant she went about things without a plan. If he really meant to help her out of the marriage, he'd have to make use of that courage while first breaking her of the impulsiveness. Otherwise, even after Zhao Ba was dealt with, she might still throw herself into danger at the next conflict. Li Qingshan didn't give her much time to let her thoughts wander. He packed up his bow and arrows and asked Wang Chunxiao whether she'd stay at the lean-to to wait for Dazhuang or come hunt nearby with him. Even after the rain, the forest might still be hiding a wolf pack that hadn't gone far, and whether Dazhuang and his father could make it here before noon was still an open question. The game they had on hand now was already enough to change the lives of several households, and enough to stir bad ideas in anyone with ill intent. Zhao Zhanshan had warned him that in the mountains, the most dangerous thing sometimes wasn't the wild animals. Last night's wolf pack had only been the first test. How to get the haul and Wang Chunxiao safely back to the village next was something he couldn't afford to slip up on, either. Before everyone gathered, Li Qingshan had to have the return trip, the split, and the story they'd tell outsiders all worked out clearly. If he handled this step badly, all the risks he'd already taken would just turn into new trouble, and he could no longer afford to lose a second time. Whichever option Wang Chunxiao chose, Li Qingshan wasn't about to let her act alone again. Her freshly reset ankle couldn't take a long march, and the pack had already found the camp the night before. To stay behind, she'd need Big Yellow with her. To go out, she could only move within sight and shouting range of the lean-to. More important, they were about to haul roughly 200 caddies of meat, pelts, and game back to Shirshi village. Wang Chunxiao suddenly turning up in the group would inevitably set tongues wagging back home. She had to explain honestly that she'd blundered into the mountains fleeing a marriage and been saved by Li Qingshan. She couldn't leave the Zhao family or anyone else an opening to spin a different story. Li Qingshan had been burned by gossip once already, and understood better than anyone what a single beat of delay in explaining could cost in a village where everyone knew everyone. Saving her was fact. The bone setting and sharing the lean-to were survival necessities. But if they were shady and evasive about it, they'd only make Wang Chunxiao's marriage situation and Li Qingshan's reputation both more tangled at once. Wang Chunxiao needed to think it through too. Once she got home, facing her father, she couldn't just say, "I won't marry him," and leave it there. Li Qingshan could offer a way out, but he couldn't shoulder every conflict for her. To truly break free of Zhao Ba, she had to turn this brush with death in the mountains into a real resolve to change her circumstances. Wang Chunxiao chose without hesitation to go with Li Qingshan. She'd rather spend the day beside him and Big Yellow than dare stand guard alone at the lean-to the wolves had clawed at the night before. Li Qingshan didn't stop hunting entirely just because the pack had appeared. The old forest held wolves and black bears to begin with, and in rare cases you might even run into a tiger. A hunter couldn't wait for the mountains to be absolutely safe before heading out. All he could do was pick the relatively favorable time and conditions. By day, visibility returned. If he met a wolf, he could climb a tree. His bow was useful, and Big Yellow would smell it coming ahead of time. Far less risk than at night. Last night's downpour had swollen the stream. Shallow spots that had only come up to the ankle now ran thigh-deep in places. The air was washed clean by the rain, and wood frogs and toads had come out in droves. These had value too, only they were spread too thin. Catching them one by one would waste time. The two of them had followed the stream out for less than 2 minutes when the jade gourd went warm again. Up ahead, a pair of pheasants was tangled together at the edge of the grass, their attention completely off their surroundings. Wang Chunxiao thought they were fighting. Li Qingshan explained with a line about them, working hard on the next generation, which turned the girl's face red on the spot. Jokes aside, the game still couldn't be let go. The two pheasants' bodies were nearly overlapping. Li Qingshan waited for the angle to line up, and one arrow ran clean through both. That shot wasn't just luck. The two birds kept shifting. If the arrow came in from the side, it'd only catch one, and the other would take flight at once. Li Qingshan waited until the cocks and hens' necks and bodies drew close to a single line, then used the arrow's penetrating force to take both together. Wang Chunxiao had felt it wasn't quite decent to kill them at a moment like that, but once she saw the two plump pheasants, her thinking turned practical fast. For someone who hadn't seen meat in months, leaving the pheasants their private time plainly mattered a lot less than dinner. She'd assumed there was some other meaning to him moving close to her earlier, but when she opened her eyes, she saw only Li Qingshan charging toward the game and felt an inexplicable little pang of disappointment. Li Qingshan didn't point it out. He just handed her the two pheasants, over 5 caddies together, to carry. 5 minutes later, he shot a palm civet hiding in the brush. The target's color blended into the surroundings. Standing right beside him, Wang Chunxiao could barely find it. Yet Li Qingshan raised his bow and hit it in an instant. It was the first time she'd witnessed this archery firsthand, and she finally believed Dazhuang's praise of him hadn't been padded. The morning hunt ran from 6 to 9. To avoid Dazhuang bringing people back to an empty camp, Li Qingshan didn't range far and headed back early. In 3 hours, the two of them brought in 3 pheasants, 3 rabbits, and a palm civet, already 30 or 40 caddies worth. Wang Chunxiao took the initiative to carry whatever game she could manage. Her ankle was reset, but Li Qingshan still wouldn't let her carry too much, checking her condition after every stretch. For the girl, those 3 hours were like a live hunting lesson. No shouting once you spot a trail, bleed the game the moment you get it. Watch the water level underfoot when passing the stream. Remember the direction of camp on the way back. She soon realized that Li Qingshan's never missing didn't mean he shot at anything he saw. When the angle wasn't right, when the fur might be damaged, when the game was near dangerous terrain, he'd rather wait a little longer. What really won you over wasn't how fast the arrow flew. It was that he knew why he was loosing it every single time. As they neared the lean-to, the jade gourd warmed again. 50 or 60 meters off, a brownish-black animal was foraging in the grass. Locals called it a mayaguzi. Its proper name was raccoon dog, also of the canine family. A grown one ran about 6 or 7 caddies, and its fur was good material for fur coats, far more valuable than ordinary rabbit skin. Li Qingshan's arrow caught it in the neck. The raccoon dog ran a few steps and dropped. Watching the game pile up, Wang Chunxiao finally tasted a worry she'd never known. Not that they couldn't catch enough, but that 2 people simply couldn't carry it all. She'd once figured marrying a hunter just meant meat every few days. Now she began to suspect that if Li Qingshan bagged this much every time, eating meat at every meal wouldn't even be an exaggeration. Of course, Li Qingshan knew perfectly well that this trip had the jade gourd, Big Yellow, and his past life archery all stacked together, and couldn't be taken as typical of all hunting. Back at camp at 9, they put the new game in the small lean-to. Yesterday's rain had brought the temperature down, and the shelter roof was layered with thick leaves for shade, so meat already dressed would keep another day fine, but it still needed hauling out soon. Li Qingshan dozed in the big shelter to wait for the others while Wang Chunxiao lay beside him chatting. She asked whether the Li family had arranged any match for him. Li Qingshan said the old Li family's reputation for playing favorites had spread all around. Everyone had seen the hardship Lu Guixiang endured after marrying in, so of course no decent family would lightly send their daughter into that house. Wang Chunxiao said it wasn't that no girl in the village thought Li Qingshan good-looking. It was just that once their parents asked around about the old Li family, they'd shake their heads. Marriage wasn't only living with a man. You had to weigh the in-laws, the grandparents, the sisters-in-law. The third branch had no stove of its own and no control over any income. So a girl who married in would most likely become a second Lu Guixiang. He let on, too, that he was already preparing to split off from the family. Only by breaking free of the Li Laoduan household registration and courtyard would his marriage, his income, and his life truly be his own to decide. When she heard, already preparing, Wang Chunxiao clearly grew serious. The core reason her father was willing to marry her to Zhao Ba was the Zhao family's means and the party secretary status. If Li Qingshan still lived in the back room of the old courtyard, being a good hunter would hardly set the Wang family at ease. But if he could truly become independent, with a house and an income, the comparison might come out differently. Neither of them steered the talk all the way to marriage, yet they'd already gone from their respective birth families to how they'd live in the future. Last night's life-saving debt gave them a layer of trust beyond that of ordinary young men and women in the same village. Hunting side by side today let Wang Chunxiao see Li Qingshan's abilities with her own eyes. They were just getting into their family's troubles when Big Yellow's barking came from outside. Dazhuang had finally arrived with his father Li Kai and his younger brother Erzwang. Li Kai had been doubting his son's exaggerated haul the whole way. Stepping in and first seeing Wang Chunxiao emerge from the lean-to, he was even more startled. A village girl and a young man spending the night out on a wild mountain was an easy thing to misread. Li Qingshan hid nothing, laying out the whole account of Wang Chunxiao fleeing her marriage and getting lost, meeting the wolf, getting hurt, and being trapped by last night's downpour. Li Kai had been around. After hearing it, he too urged Wang Chunxiao not to be so rash again. The girl promised not to run off recklessly, but still stated plainly she wouldn't marry Zhao Ba. Once things were explained, Li Qingshan opened the small lean-to and began showing the three of them the hall. First the rabbits, pheasants, palm civet, and the freshly taken raccoon dog. Erzwang was already dumbstruck. Then Dazhuang dragged out the first 60-some catty roe deer and dropped it heavily on the ground. The second and third followed one after another, and Li Kai couldn't even get his words out straight. Dazhuang didn't grab the credit. He told his father that the vast majority of the game had been shot by Li Qingshan, that he'd mainly handled the dressing and hauling, and had only taken one roe deer at the end with the red-tasseled spear. That explanation left Li Kai even more pleased with his son. Dazhuang hadn't raked all the credit onto himself just because he'd gone along, nor had he hidden Li Qingshan's part. In the mountains, the worst thing among partners was falling out over splitting the take. A companion willing to speak honestly was rarer than one who was simply strong. Li Kai pressed Li Qingshan on when he'd learned to shoot. Dazhuang jumped in to answer. Never missed within 50 meters, could hit rabbits and pheasants at range too, and Li Qingshan would sooner or later become the finest lead hunter in the whole region. Li Qingshan didn't ride the hype. He only said he'd learned from mountain folk in the past, and that there'd been some luck in this first haul, too. The Jade Gourd's power couldn't be made public, and Big Yellow's role couldn't be erased, either. Casting all the success as a personal miracle would only invite more probing and jealousy. Dazhuang and Erzwang got more and more excited, and right in front of Wang Chunxiao started discussing introducing their cousin Qinglian from Song Village to Li Qingshan. Wang Chunxiao's face immediately went a little stiff. Li Kai caught the sign and quickly shut his two sons up, telling them to sort out their own marriages first and stop matchmaking for other people. The more practical problem at hand was transport. The camp now held 3 roe deer, about 170 catties, 7 pheasants left, about 16 catties, 10 rabbits, about 50 catties, 1 palm civet at about 8, and the newly taken raccoon dog at about 7. 251 catties in all. And that figure was what remained after they'd already eaten a good number of rabbits and pheasants. Count in everything taken from the first day until now, and the haul would only be higher. When Dazhuang said it couldn't be carried back, it was no exaggeration. Running to the village alone to fetch people had been the only sensible choice at the time. Li Kai first estimated by head count. 4 grown men plus Wang Chunxiao seemed like plenty. But 251 catties wasn't a 10-minute carry across flat ground. It meant crossing the mountains for a whole day. On top of the meat, each person had to carry a weapon, dry rations, and water, so the actual usable load was less than it looked. By carrying capacity, Dazhuang and Erzwang could each shoulder 40 or 50 catties, Li Kai about 30, and Li Qingshan, who also had to carry the bow and arrows, 40 at most. Even adding Wang Chuanxiao's 20-some caddies, a fair portion still couldn't be taken. Li Qingshan had a plan ready. Skin all the game first. On the 3-row deer, strip out the big bones as much as possible and carry only clean meat. Scrape the leftover fat off the pelts and hang them in the sun and breeze to dry part way, to be retrieved on the next trip in. There was no need to haul all the bones, clean them and burn or bury them in one spot so they wouldn't draw animals. Roast a few more rabbits and pheasants to fuel the people on the trail, and the remaining weight would drop into a range 5 people could bear. While inspecting the pelts, Li Kai noticed that nearly all of Li Qingshan's arrows had struck the neck. No holes in the roe deer or rabbit hides, no large tears. Condition like that made it hard for a buyer to knock down the price at sale. He didn't have much hunting experience, but he knew even the old hunters nearby couldn't necessarily do it so consistently. The group split up the skinning, deboning, and hanging to dry. Li Qingshan had handled hides constantly in his past life and was practiced at scraping fat, stretching, and picking well-ventilated spots. Watching, Li Kai began to wonder just how much this young man, called a good-for-nothing in the village for years, had really been hiding. Roe deer hides were large and couldn't just be rolled up like rabbit skins. If the fat wasn't scraped clean, one day in the sun and it'd sweat oil and turn rank, stretch it unevenly, and it'd wrinkle and warp once dry. Li Qingshan fixed the edges with vine rope so the hide spread out evenly, then hung it high enough that animals couldn't reach it. Stripping the big bones couldn't be all about speed, either. Running the blade tight against the bone left the most meat behind. Hacking away saved time, but left a lot of the sellable portion on the bone. None of them were professional butchers, so Li Qingshan took the hardest spots while the others handled the legs and the smaller game. The rabbit, roe deer, and raccoon dog hides were kept separate. The raccoon dog pelt was valuable and had to be kept especially free of cuts. All the discarded remains were burned or buried deep in one spot. They couldn't turn a camp full of fresh meat into a regular feeding ground for the pack. Rabbits and pheasants were soon roasting over the fire. Erzwang said he hadn't had meat in over half a year. Li Kai scolded him for having no backbone, yet kept swallowing hard himself. In the past, at holidays and festivals, the family split a little meat, and each person had barely tasted it before it was gone. This time there was meat to spare, and everyone could truly eat their fill. Li Qingshan first handed a portion of the meat to Dazhuang, who'd had the hardest march. Dazhuang had gone back to the village alone the night before with almost no rest, then led people into the mountains today. He'd burned the most energy. Erzwang and Li Kai each got a whole cut too, while Wang Chunxiao ate less and pitched in sorting rope in the lighter game. Li Kai had meant to be polite about it, figuring the meat should be sold for cash as much as possible. But watching his 2 sons wolf it down, in the end he didn't stop them. That the boys had grown to 1.9 meters, yet stayed thin as bamboo poles was proof of how long the family had gone short on nourishment. Getting a full meal of meat in exchange for labor was hardly a waste. After this meal, Li Kai changed his mind completely. He'd meant to forbid Dazhuang from going into the mountains with Li Qingshan again. But now he saw his son not only safe, but having learned to dress game and taken a roe deer with his own hands. If Li Qingshan always led the way as safely as this trip, following him might hold more of a future for Dazhuang than just tending a few acres of land. Li Kai even began to consider bringing Erzwang along next time. The group packed up the clean meat and remaining game and set out for Shirshi village that afternoon. The mountain trail was as rough as ever. Everyone carried weight according to their strength, and no one raced ahead. Around 5 in the afternoon, they finally appeared at the edge of the village. On the way back, Dazhuang and Erzwang took the heaviest loads. Li Kai set the group's pace. Li Qingshan carried the bow and kept watch all around, and Wang Chunxiao carried the lighter rabbits and pheasants. They rested briefly after each stretch, checking whether the knots had worn through or the meat bundles had slid to one side. The slopes were especially slick after last night's rain. If someone carrying a load fell, it wasn't just meat dropping into the mud. They could twist an ankle or tumble down the hill. Li Qingshan would rather reach the village an hour later than let the Dazhuang brothers push it going downhill. The edge of the village was the liveliest spot in the farming off-season. Men sat on stone blocks swapping tall tales, women chatted nearby, and children chased each other down the road. Someone made out Li Qingshan, Dazhuang, and Erzwang from a distance, and their first reaction was that the 3 were lucky to have come back alive. Only as they drew near did the villagers see that every one of them had fresh meat covered with leaves on their shoulders, with rabbits and pheasants hanging at their waists. Blacksmith Li mistakenly thought it was Li Kai and his son's catch and praised him to his face for hiding his depths. Li Kai laughed and denied it, making clear the game belonged to Li Qingshan and that his family had only gone up the mountain to help haul it. The leaves and thin branches weren't just to block prying eyes. They also kept the sun off the meat and kept it from getting coated in dust the whole way. Even so, the smell of meat and blood was enough to draw everyone at the village edge over. The children couldn't tear their eyes off the pheasants, while the grown-ups silently tallied how much the stuff could fetch. The crowd erupted at once. That good-for-nothing who hated field work and loafed around all day had brought back this much meat on his very first trip up the mountain. It defied everything everyone knew. Zhao Chong was in the crowd too. He'd just been let go by Li Hu and still hated Li Qingshan for wrecking his family's scheme. Had Li Qingshan died in the mountains, the Zhao family might have wriggled out of the house deal. Now not only was he was back loaded down, and Zhao Chong insisted in front of everyone that the game was stolen. Zhao Chong himself knew perfectly well that no hunter had reported anything missing, and he couldn't say where Li Qingshan would have stolen 3 roe deer from. He was simply playing on the villagers' old impression of a good-for-nothing. When a man's reputation had been bad, every new thing he accomplished was held to a higher standard of proof, which was exactly why Li Qingshan had to lay out the logic clearly for everyone. The guess happened to feed some people's jealousy. Even seasoned hunters might go days without a haul like this. How could Li Qingshan possibly manage it? Pockmarked Auntie, Zhao Yutian, and others seized on it to demand he explain, some even saying he should be reported to the government. Blacksmith Li, Carpenter Zhao, and Tofu Shisher spoke up for him. They didn't necessarily know how the game had come about, but they weren't willing to condemn a young man with no evidence. Li Qingshan didn't rush to refute them. He filed everyone's words away in his mind. Who kicked a man while he was down when the facts were unclear, and who was willing to speak fairly first, would decide who he cared to associate with later. Da Zhuang and Wang Chunxiao stepped forward to testify too, saying the game truly was taken by Li Qingshan's own hand in the mountains. Li Kai could vouch for it as well. He'd not only seen the game at camp, but had personally handled the neck wounds from the arrows and the pelts. The wounds on all 3 roe deer were consistent, and most of the rabbits and pheasants had been arrow-struck too. There was no way it had been cobbled together on the fly from different hunters. Some villagers changed their tune because of this, while others still felt Li Kai's family was in on a scheme. Li Qingshan didn't try to make everyone like him on the spot. He only needed the slanderers to understand that from now on, any accusation came with the burden of producing evidence. Once the crowd had mostly had its say, Li Qingshan grabbed Zhao Chong by the collar and asked what grounds he had for declaring the stuff stolen. Zhao Chong said Li Qingshan couldn't hunt in the past. That was reason enough, and told Li Qingshan to prove his own innocence. Li Qingshan turned the burden of proof right back on him. The one accusing another of theft ought to produce the victim, the location, and the sequence of events, not make the accused prove something he'd never done. He asked Zhao Chong back. He could just as easily claim Zhao Chong had stolen 100 yuan. So how would Zhao Chong prove he hadn't? Zhao Chong reflexively said that would be a false charge. Li Qingshan then pressed. If an accusation with no evidence was a false charge, then what did that make his claim about the game? Cornered, Zhao Chong had nothing left but, I've got a feeling. Li Qingshan took the opening to bring up Zhao Gui's frame-up a few days earlier, saying the Zhao father and son, one falsely accusing him of bullying Wang Naixiang, the other of stealing game, had methods cut from the same cloth. Then, in front of everyone, he gave Zhao Chong a lesson. His fists and feet didn't strike at anything fatal, but they were enough to leave Zhao Chong on the ground begging for mercy. The villagers pulled them apart, but they knew the troublemaker was in the wrong. When Li Qingshan asked again who else could produce evidence, everyone who'd been shouting loudest a moment ago shut their mouths. He also pointedly tied the 2 frame-ups together. Zhao Gui couldn't produce evidence when he said Li Qingshan had bullied Wang Naixiang, and Zhao Chong went on nothing but a feeling when he said Li Qingshan had stolen the game. The Zhao family was used to slinging mud first, and then forcing the victim to prove himself. If he didn't make them pay a price this time, next time they'd just swap in a different charge. Even after being pulled away, Zhao Chong lay on the ground cursing, but Li Qingshan didn't keep after him. The goal was achieved. Going further might turn a fair lesson into excessive harm. Seeing the hard approach fail, pockmarked Annie switched tactics. She blocked Li Qingshan's path and straight off demanded a pheasant, saying her grandson was growing and neighbors ought to look out for one another. Li Qingshan named a price of 50 cents. But pockmarked Annie figured that since he'd caught so much, giving her one was the only way to show he understood how things worked between people. Li Qingshan didn't fall back on the crude comparison from before. He only asked her, "You've got grain, chickens, a son, and a daughter-in-law. Why not take your own things to nourish your grandson? Why should the game I risked my life in the mountains for be given away for free, just because you live close by?" To someone who was slandering me a moment ago. Pockmarked Auntie had no answer, and could only curse him for not understanding human decency. Li Qingshan simply went around her. Real decency was helping each other in hard times, not stomping on someone first, and then reaching out a hand once you spotted a benefit. He wasn't against selling game in the village, nor unwilling to knock off even 50 cents. If families like blacksmith Li's or carpenter Zhao's, who'd been willing to speak fairly just now, really had someone sick who needed building up, he'd even help at cost. But the neighbor, pockmarked Andy, spoke of only existed when meat was on the table. That kind of decency didn't need to be accepted. Zhao Chong, pockmarked Auntie, and Zhao Yutian kept saying behind his back that the game was stolen, even hoping the victim would show up with the government in tow. But most of the villagers, watching the meat the group had hauled back, felt more envy and reappraisal than anything. From this moment, the first crack appeared in Li Qingshan's reputation. When they got back to the old Li house, dinner had just been laid out. At the head table were cornmeal cakes, a plate of stir-fried vegetables, and half a salted duck egg. At the lower table, it was still sweet potato porridge and pickles. Li Laoduan first picked out the salted duck egg for Li Qingshu, then kept a little for himself. The second branch occasionally got a share of cornmeal cake, while the third branch could only sit with sweet potato porridge. This meal laid the difference before and after splitting the household right out in the open. In the mountains, Li Qingshan could already eat several rabbits in one sitting, while his mother and sister-in-law couldn't even get half a salted duck egg at home. It wasn't that the old Li family had no good things at all. It was that the good things never came around to the third branch. Li Qingshu was in the middle of talking about Li Qingshan. He figured that 3 days into the mountains, Li Qingshan most likely wasn't coming back, and demanded that Li Sankuei tell Li Hu ahead of time that the new house was his and couldn't be used to cover his son's debt. Li Laoduan immediately backed his eldest grandson, and Li Sankuei, though unwilling, went along out of habit. Only Lu Guixiang firmly believed Li Qingshan would come back safe, and with game besides. Li Qingshu mocked her openly, saying making it back alive from a first trip up the mountain was luck enough. The first and second branches seized the chance to belittle the third branch too, one saying Li Qingshan didn't measure up to Qingyu and Qingyu, who'd learned carpentry, another bringing up Li Sankuei's vanished eldest son. The eldest aunt even scolded Lu Guixiang, saying women had no business cutting in while men were talking. Lu Guixiang lowered her head over her sweet potato porridge, tears welling in her eyes, but still she didn't withdraw her faith in Li Qingshan. To seem certain, Li Qingshu declared that if Li Qingshan could bring back even 2 rabbits or pheasants, he'd kneel to his cousin. He dared to make such a bet because the whole family took it for granted that Li Qingshan couldn't possibly have a haul on his first trip up the mountain. The first branch had even started arranging Li Qingshan's punishment for when he got back. Barred from the table, made to wait until everyone had finished and pick at the leftovers, to teach him what they called keeping his feet on the ground. The words had barely left his mouth when Li Qingshan caught them from the doorway. "You said that with your own mouth." Everyone turned to see him, with Da Zhuang, Erzwang, Li Kai, and Wang Chunxiao behind him, every one of them carrying meat. The third branch was first delighted. The first and second branches seemed suddenly struck dumb. Han Xiu was on her feet almost instantly, first checking her son's face, hands, and feet for injury. Lu Guixiang came out from the lower table too, her gaze sweeping over the game before settling back on Li Qingshan. For them, how much money the meat could bring was a matter for later. That he'd come back safe carrying the bao bought with the silver bracelet was the first thing worth being thankful for. Li Qingshan told them he wasn't hurt, and that the bao and all 6 arrows were intact. Lu Guixiang clearly breathed easier hearing it, but didn't mention the silver bracelet in front of everyone, to avoid stirring the old Li family's greed once they learned where the bao had really come from. In front of the gathering villagers, Li Kai confirmed that all the game was Li Qingshan's, including 3 roe deer. Li Sankuei's first reaction wasn't to tally the money but to turn to his father and say excitedly that his son had finally made something of himself. Li Laoduan, plainly shocked, said only that a few wild critters weren't worth mentioning, and turned it around to blame Li Sankuei for not keeping his composure. Lu Guixiang paid no mind to the numbers. She quietly stepped to Li Qingshan's side and first made sure he wasn't hurt. Once all the game was set down, Li Qingshan had Li Qingshu make good on the bet. The villagers egged it on too, saying a spit was a nail driven in. The cousin couldn't welch in front of everyone. Li Qingshu's face went ugly, and the eldest uncle first said a young man's offhand remark couldn't be held to. But if the winner had been the first branch, that line clearly wouldn't have come up. Li Qingshan didn't actually need a cousin to kneel. What he wanted was to let the whole family see that the first branch's words carried consequences too. The eldest uncle tried to excuse the kneeling on the grounds that Li Qingshu was still in school and might work for the government someday. Li Qingshan followed that logic right through, saying a man who broke his word and dodged responsibility was even less likely to be taken on by the government. The father and son were actually cowed by the line. Li Qingshan offered an alternative. No kneeling was fine. Settle it with the half caddy of brown sugar Li Qingshu had stashed away. At the words, half a caddy of brown sugar, the villagers' attention snapped from the kneeling to the goods. An ordinary family only dared use a little during a month of postpartum confinement, illness, or a major holiday. Yet Li Qingshu, a young man, could privately hoard half a caddy. How the old Li family's resources tilted needed no further words. Brown sugar in that era was a rare thing for building up the body. In all their years in the old Li family, Han Xiao and Lu Guixiang had rarely tasted so much as a mouthful, yet Li Qingshu could stir it into water and drink it often. Taking back that half caddy wasn't just winning a bet, it was reclaiming a little of what the third branch's labor had earned. Weighing his face, Li Qingshu had no choice but to fetch the brown sugar. As he held out the paper packet, Li Qingshan, in the instant of taking it, pressed a hidden acupoint on his hand and stimulated it with the pure yang true qi he'd just refined. Li Qingshu's legs suddenly gave out, and he dropped to his knees in front of everyone. Everyone was stunned. Li Qingshan deliberately said that since his cousin had already handed over the brown sugar, there was no need to perform the full courtesy, and he certainly wouldn't be giving the stuff back. The eldest uncle hurried to help his son up, while the villagers around them broke into laughter. This would soon be all over Shirshi village. Li Qingshan's use of true qi had only been a small test, lasting a very short time, yet it proved his past life Taoist medicine techniques could be used again. The hidden acupoint he'd pressed left Li Qingshu no injury. Once the true qi withdrew, his legs recovered. Onlookers would only assume Li Qingshu was nervous, weak-kneed, or had genuinely knelt on his own. Hard to connect the event with the instant Li Qingshan took the brown sugar. This method was more discreet than throwing a punch in public, and better suited to handling future conflicts where he couldn't openly make a move. Seeing his eldest grandson humiliated, Li Laoduan immediately turned his attention to the game. In his authority as head of the household, he laid out the split. Pick a few rabbits and pheasants. One for Li Qingshu to build his strength for his studies, one for himself, and one each to send to the first and second branches. Haul all the rest to market to sell, buy a caddy of brown sugar to replace Li Qingshu's, and hand the remaining money over to his own keeping. The one thing the whole plan left out was the third branch. Li Laoduan even counted in the stir-fried cornmeal that hadn't been finished. Li Qingshan had only been in the mountains 3 days. There was surely some of the rations he'd taken left over, and the old man demanded it all be turned back into the grain sack. In other words, after Li Qingshan had used that grain to bring back over 200 caddies of game, he couldn't even keep the last few mouthfuls of fried meal for himself. Li Sankuei finally couldn't help asking. The game was clearly Qingshan's catch, so why couldn't he be given even one? But Li Laoduan, citing Li Qingshan forcing his cousin to kneel, said neither father nor son was fit to eat meat. Li Qingshan had taken a few caddies of fried meal up the mountain, too, and the rest had to be handed back to his grandmother, so he could keep drinking sweet potato porridge as a lesson from now on. At this point, Li Qingshan spared him no more face. He told Li Laoduan plainly that the game belonged to the ones who'd put in the work of hunting it, not something the old man could take entirely with a word about being head of the household. Li Laoduan slammed the table and berated him for insubordination. Li Qingshan drove the hatchet into the thick wooden table. The huge crack and the flying splinters stopped everyone who'd been about to reach for the game. He hadn't aimed the blade at anyone. The target was always the table. It made his stance clear while keeping a property dispute from escalating into armed assault. But that deep gash was enough to make it plain. Whoever reached for the meat on the ground again would find the next step wouldn't just be talk. Second Uncle Li Erkue had the shortest temper and stepped out to pull rank as an elder. Li Qingshan admitted it wasn't fitting to strike an elder directly, then turned and asked whether teaching 2 cousins of his own generation a lesson was any problem at all. Before Li Erkue could even react, he'd already dropped Li Qingyu with a punch, grabbed Li Qingyu and thrown him over his shoulder, then kicked Li Qingshu flying. The three of them, who normally bullied the third branch on the strength of numbers and first branch standing, were all on the ground in the blink of an eye. Li Qingyu took the punch to the gut and dropped into a crouch. Li Qingyu was thrown hard enough to leave his back tingling, and Li Qingshu had a clear footprint left on his chest. Li Qingshan controlled his force, stripping the three of their ability to keep fighting over the game without actually causing serious injury. The villagers around them saw a free-for-all, but in truth he'd chosen the spot for every blow. Some were amazed where he'd learned such skill, while others still said it was just that the three cousins were too useless. Either way, the old Li family's method of overpowering the third branch by sheer numbers had failed for the first time. Li Erkuei wanted to step in for his sons, but Dazhuang and Erzwang moved in front of Li Qingshan at the same time. With two young men near 2 meters tall blocking the way, Li Erkuei instantly lost the bluster from a moment ago. Seeing the situation slip out of control, Li Laoduan finally played his last card, refused to recognize him as head of the household, and get the hell out of the old Li family. In the past, that line would have been enough to subdue Li Sankuei. The house, the farmland, the rations, and the household registration were all in his father's grip. Being thrown out meant losing the very basis of survival. Li Laoduan hadn't realized that the Zhao family's old courtyard and the game before them had already broken 2 of those locks for the third branch. The watching villagers figured Li Qingshan would surely back down this time. The third branch had no independent homestead, and the new house was mortgaged to Li Hu. Swept out the door, they'd have nowhere to sleep but open ground. But this line was exactly what Li Qingshan had been waiting for. He accepted it in front of everyone and demanded they go to the government the next day to split off the household. He turned to his parents and sister-in-law and asked whether they'd leave with him. Han Xiao was the first to stand at her son's side, saying wherever her son went, his mother would go too. Lu Guoxiang declared herself at once as well. Everyone's eyes finally settled on Li Sankuei. Li Laoduan still glared at his youngest son as he always had, certain the man wouldn't dare defy his father. Li Sankuei clenched both fists, looked at his wife, his son, and his daughter-in-law, and finally spoke the hardest words of his life. "Father, you have 3 sons. I have only this one wife and 1 son. Compared to them, they matter more to me. I've done right by you all these years, but you've never once truly been good to me." The words also meant Li Sankuei was finally admitting that his father would never suddenly become fair just because he kept enduring. He'd done years of heavy labor for the old Li family, building the house, farming the fields, supporting the elders, sparing none of it. And what he'd gotten was his wife and son at the lower table, and the courtyard he'd built himself handed to a nephew. To stay would only make the next generation repeat the same life. He agreed to split the household, and to do it tomorrow. It was the first time Li Sankuei had placed his wife and son ahead of his father's authority. What Li Qingshan truly needed wasn't for his father to throw a punch on his behalf, but for him to be willing to admit that the third branch also had the right to live for itself. Furious, Li Laoduan declared that the third branch could take only a few ragged clothes, no house, no money or grain, no land at all. The eldest uncle again played the good man, urging Li Sankuei and son to apologize and stay, when in truth he couldn't bear to lose the third branch's years of labor and the pile of meat before him. Li Qingshan refused. He reminded Li Laoduan that the Zhao family's old courtyard had already been transferred over. The third branch wasn't without anywhere to go. Until the household was formally split off, they still lawfully lived in their current rooms, and no one could drive them out overnight. The land, too, wasn't Li Laoduan's alone. When it was originally allotted, it had been counted by head, though the land certificate led with the head of household's name. Li Sankuei, Li Qingshan, and the other co-owners were still registered after it. If the old man wanted to keep the third branch's share, he'd buy it out for 5 yuan. 5 yuan seemed low, but what Li Qingshan was weighing was time. If he insisted on measuring on the spot, dividing the plots and the grain, Li Laoduan could drag it out endlessly, and the Zhao family's old courtyard was pressing to be reclaimed. Settling the buyout with a 5 yuan IOU let the third branch immediately shed the most entangling asset while leaving a formal written record. What's more, within a year or so the relations of production would change, and the personal control value of farmland would drop sharply. Li Laoduan treated those few acres as a lifeline that could trap the third branch forever. Li Qingshan saw them as a bargaining chip about to expire. Li Laoduan agreed to write a 5 yuan IOU. He was certain the third branch, with no farmland, would sooner or later come back hungry and begging, not knowing that in a year or so, the land and the mode of production would change with collectivization. Li Qingshan was willing to trade this year's one harvest for 5 yuan in cash, both to cut down the wrangling over the split and to leave the old man clutching an advantage that would soon become worthless. Li Qingshan insisted the IOU state clearly that it was compensation for a share of the farmland, not just an ordinary loan. Li Qingshu held the brush. Li Laoduan pressed his fingerprint, and the watching villagers saw the transaction take place. That way, even if the old man later reneged and claimed the third branch had voluntarily given up everything, Li Qingshan would still have written grounds to prove the two sides had settled. Li Qingshu personally wrote out the IOU, and Li Laoduan pressed his fingerprint. The first branch even snickered at Li Qingshan for being a fool, giving up land for 5 yuan. Li Qingshan didn't explain the future. He just put the document safely away. He folded the IOU and stored it against his body, kept separate from the deed to the Zhao family house. When they went to the government to split the household next, he'd have to make this exchange appear in both sides' verbal confirmation as well. Splitting the household didn't end with a single shout in the courtyard. The registration, the address, the land, and the debts all had to leave records wherever possible, or any omission would turn into a fresh fight later. Da Zhuang, Erzwang, and Li Kai carried the main game down into the cellar. Li Qingshan set aside 2 pheasants, 2 rabbits, and a palm civet for his mother and Lu Guixiang to cook, inviting Li Kai's family to eat together that evening. For the first time cooking at her own small stove in the old Li family, Han Xiu was suddenly unsure whether she should even begin. Lu Guixiang took the game and pulled her mother-in-law straight into the kitchen. Han Xiu still reflexively glanced toward Li Laotuan, as if waiting for a word of permission. But Lu Guixiang reminded her that Qingshan had caught these himself, that the third branch had already decided to split off, and there was no more need to ask leave. The 2 women scrubbed the pot clean, cut the rabbit into pieces, dressed the pheasants first, and set the palm civet aside for slow stewing. The seasonings weren't plentiful, only salt and the sauce the house used every day, but the smell of meat still soon overwhelmed the whole courtyard. Cooking, Han Xiu asked several times whether she was putting in too much, and Lu Guixiang only smiled and said tonight they'd let the ones who'd gone into the mountains and done the hauling truly eat their fill. This meal had a clear meaning too. Li Kai's family had gone up the mountain, hauled, and dressed the game, and deserved to be hosted. The third branch, having just decided to split off, needed all the more to prove through real living that leaving the old man was no dead end. If all the meat were hidden away out of spite, it would only fail to build their parents' confidence. Li Qingshan didn't call the first and second branches to the table. It wasn't stinginess over a few bites of meat, but that ownership of the game had only just been held on to through conflict. If Li Laoduan redistributed it now under "the whole family eats together," the boundary would blur again at once. The smell of meat soon drifted into the main room. Li Sankuei, having just defied his father, was still trembling slightly from nerves, but he guarded the area near the cellar, letting neither the first nor the second branch touch his son's things. To others, this guarding seemed ordinary. For Li Sankuei, it was an enormous change. He'd once not dared question even his father giving out an extra bit of pickles, and now he was directly blocking his 2 older brothers and several nephews. Whenever anyone approached the cellar, he'd straighten up and repeat, "This is Qingshan's, no one may take it." Li Qingshan then took a pheasant and 2 rabbits to Zhao Zhanshan's house. Big Yellow had contributed enormously to this hunt, and Zhao Zhanshan had once saved his life. This haul rightly owed the Zhao family a share. Big Yellow ran ahead and barked the moment it reached the familiar courtyard gate. When Zhao Shanxing opened it, she was both glad the dog was safe and surprised Li Qingshan had truly brought back game. She thought the 2 rabbits and 1 pheasant were the whole of it, and repeatedly urged him to take them back for his family. Only when Li Qingshan mentioned the 3 roe deer and over 200 caddies in total did she feel sure this gift of thanks wouldn't burden the third branch. Wang Chunxiao was preparing to head home too. She asked Li Qingshan when he'd go into the mountains again, and pressed about the way to be rid of Zhao Ba. Li Qingshan told her to wait until he got back from the market the next day. He had no plan to make public yet. He gave Wang Chunxiao a rabbit as payment for hauling, and told her to tell her family only that she'd gotten a craving and wanted to go take a look in the mountains, where she happened to run into a hunting party. Wang Chunxiao proposed he tell her first before the next trip up the mountain. Li Qingshan immediately warned her she couldn't follow him into the forest again, but the girl said she had other plans and he'd understand when the time came. She had plainly already made Li Qingshan the key to changing her marriage and wanted to do something for this help. That cover story could hide the runaway marriage. If the Wang family learned she'd left home alone, they'd very likely bar her from going out for a while, and any later plan to change the marriage would have no room to unfold. Wang Chunxiao nodded in agreement and headed home carrying the rabbit. On the road, Li Qingshan happened to run into Zhao Chong and again gave the Zhao family notice. Move out of the old courtyard by noon the next day at the latest, or bear the consequences themselves. Zhao Chong went home and passed it on, but Zhao Gui meant to Welsh. Their family had lived in that courtyard for generations, and even with the deed transferred, they wouldn't leave. Certainly, Qingshan surely wouldn't go so far as to kill anyone. After Zhao Chong got home, the father and son felt all the more that they could tough it out on numbers. Zhao Chong still had a flicker of worry, since the township office paperwork had already gone through. He asked whether, with the house transferred, staying put could really hold up. Zhao Gui's answer was one line: don't move. As long as the whole family camped in the house, then even with the law on his side, Li Qingshan would have to face the public opinion of forcibly driving out old people and women. This was Zhao Gui's real calculation. After his scheme failed, he'd shifted from extortion to stonewalling, still exploiting others' concern for their reputation. But he didn't understand that the reborn Li Qingshan had long since stopped putting what others will think ahead of his lawful rights. They pushed all the blame for losing the house onto Wang Naixiang. Zhao Gui and his wife cursed her for failing to hold onto Li Qingshan in the first place, and Zhao Chong even knocked the food from her hands, ordering her to go wash the whole family's clothes. Wang Naixiang could only hold back her tears and work while the Zhao family's abuse never let up for a moment. Wang Naixiang hadn't even finished the worst of the bran husk rice. Zhao Chong said she'd doomed her older brother and was no help to her younger one. Zhao Gui and his wife were convinced that if not for their daughter-in-law not cooperating, the old Li family's new house would already be theirs. None of the three would admit at all that what had really caused the gambling debt and the house sale was Zhao Chong's gambling and their own scheming. This venting aimed at Wang Naixiang left her in even more danger than the first day. Though Li Qingshan had wrecked the frame-up, he hadn't yet actually gotten her out of the Zhao family. As long as the Zhaos still controlled her housing and registration, she could pay the price for a new failure at any time. On the other side, seeing the rabbits and pheasant Li Qingshan had brought, Zhao Shanqing thought it was the whole of his first trip's haul and firmly refused to accept it. She said the Li family's life was hard too, that bagging 2 rabbits and a pheasant on this trip was extraordinary luck, and next time might bring nothing. Li Qingshan could only explain that there was still plenty of game at home, and these few had always been meant as a gift of thanks. Big Yellow's safe return proved once again that what the Zhao family had lent wasn't an ordinary dog, but an important partner for the whole hunt. Only then did Zhao Shanqing accept part of it, meaning to build up her father's strength. Zhao Zhanshan was bedridden and couldn't go up the mountain, and meat would help his body recover. The pheasant and rabbits were worth more than just money. They'd also spare the Zhao family from dipping into savings that had already run dry to buy nourishment. What Li Qingshan brought over was only a small fraction of the whole haul, but it was enough to show he didn't take the Zhao family's help for granted. In the main room of the old Li household, the first branch, the second branch, and old man, Li had begun a meeting of their own. They didn't stop to consider why the third branch wanted to leave. Instead, they discussed how to retaliate now that they'd lost the third branch's labor. The second uncle argued for throwing them out that very night. The eldest uncle insisted they had to be taught a lesson, or the Li family would lose face. As usual, old man Li turned to Li Qingshu, the most educated one. Li Qingshu figured that making a move now would only lead to a clash with Li Kai's boys, Dazhuang and Erzwang. The best approach, he said, was to go along with splitting the household, but give the third branch no land and no property, and let them fail on their own. The way he saw it, even a seasoned hunter like Zhao Zhanshan still needed farmland. There was no way Li Qingshan could feed 4 mouths on his own for long. This haul of over 200 pounds of game was just luck. Next time he might come back empty-handed, or even die on the mountain. Once the third branch ran out of food, they'd naturally come crawling back to old man Li. Then he could not only turn them back into laborers, but also use the chance to swallow up the Zhao family's old courtyard. Li Qingshu came up with another angle: arrange a marriage for Li Qingshan as soon as possible. Once a young man set his mind on taking a wife, he'd need to prepare a bride price, clothes, and a home of his own, which meant going up the mountain even more often. The more trips up the mountain, the higher the odds of an accident. The second aunt immediately thought of a niece on her side of the family who was of the right age, and agreed to go home and feel things out. They also planned to dress the whole thing up as the elders showing concern. Publicly, they'd only say that Li Qingshan was 18, that after the split he needed a woman to run the household, never admitting the real goal was to pile on the pressure of a bride price. If the match went through, the first branch could sit back and wait for him to take risks. If it fell through, they could still use "no one's willing to marry him" as a jab at the third branch. This so-called marriage plan was never about Li Qingshan starting a family. From the very start, it was about using a bride price to force him into danger. Li Qingshu even went out of his way to analyze it. After the third branch moved into the Zhao family's old courtyard, what they seemed to lack most was grain and land, but what they actually needed most urgently was a woman of the house. Han Xiu was getting on in years, and Lu Guixiang, as a widowed sister-in-law, couldn't rightfully take on the housekeeping or the dealings with outsiders. A new daughter-in-law was needed to make it all proper. Just put a girl in front of Li Qingshan, then hint that the bride price couldn't be too small, and the young man would keep pushing deeper into the mountains for the sake of his pride. Old Man Li listened, thoroughly pleased. He still believed he had the third branch under his thumb, never once considering that if the match actually succeeded, it would only give Li Qingshan a more stable little family. Their favoritism blinded them. All they could see was how to add risk, not that a young man who could hunt steadily, knew medicine, and had his own courtyard was already becoming a fine prospect on the marriage market. The meeting ended with a redistribution of chores. Li Qingshu would keep studying. The eldest aunt would stay home to cook and do laundry. The eldest uncle would accompany the old man to handle the household split. The whole second branch would go to the fields to weed and till the soil. Qingyu and Qingyu had been set to learn a trade from Carpenter Zhao, but Old Man Li forced them to do farm work first. The second branch's brothers tried to argue, saying they couldn't just skip out on their master. But Old Man Li shot back. If farmers didn't work the land, what would they eat? Learning a trade could wait until the farm work was done. The second uncle didn't dare speak up for his sons. He could only agree to keep them in line. This was exactly how Old Man Li ran the family. Pile the most labor on the third branch, then dole out small favors to keep the first branch content. The moment the third branch pulled out, the pressure shifted straight onto the second branch. The second branch had gone along with the favoritism because they still got a cut of the benefits. Now, at last, they were beginning to bear the cost of the system. Most of these chores used to fall on the third branch. Now, before they'd even officially moved out, the second branch was already getting a taste of losing that free labor. They were resentful, but no one dared to stand up the way Li Sankuei had. Qingyu and Qingyu had once taken pride in learning carpentry, even using it at the dinner table to look down on Li Qingshan. Only when it was their turn to have their studies derailed by chores and farm work did the two of them realize just how much the third branch had shouldered for the whole family. But they didn't aim their resentment at the one doing the dividing. They only blamed Li Sankuei's family more bitterly for leaving. The aroma of chicken drifting from the kitchen wafted into the main room, and the first branch, the second branch, and Old Man Li all swallowed hard. The old man had to save face for himself, saying he'd go into town the next day and buy meat back. But buying meat in town cost hard cash and depended on supply and timing. The third branch's meat was right there on the other side of a wall, yet for the first time they couldn't just reach for it on the strength of being elders. The stronger the smell, the more concrete the outcome of that household split became. What they didn't know was that what the third branch ate tonight was more than just a meal of meat. Li Sankuei, through his first act of defiance, had held on to his son's game, and had seen clearly that leaving the old Li household wouldn't mean starving right away. When the food was finally served, Li Kai's family sat down together with the third branch. Da Zhuang and Erzwang told tales of the hunting shelter up the mountain, the three-row deer, and the downpour. Han Xiu, hearing about the wolf pack surrounding the shelter, was still shaken. Lu Guixiang, while dishing out food, kept an eye on whether Li Qingshan got hungry again quickly after his training. And for the first time, Li Sankuei didn't carry the best meat to the head of the table. Instead, he let his wife, children, and guests eat first. Across the courtyard, the first and second branches could hear the chatter at the little table. In the past, even the rare bit of food the third branch got had to be handed over to Old Man Li for redistribution first. Now they were hosting guests off their own game and deciding the portions themselves, while the old man could only smell the aroma from the main room. That change said more about what the household split meant than any argument could. Once the split was official, this dinner table, held together for years by favoritism, would no longer decide what the third branch ate or who their earnings went to. And the Zhao family refusing to move out, with Wang Naixiang still being humiliated, meant the split was only the first step. The next day, on top of selling the game and registering the household, Li Qingshan would have to actually take over the courtyard that was now in his name. The 36 yuan loan hadn't been repaid. The 5 yuan land IOU had just come into hand. The pelts were still hanging out at the old forest, and over 200 pounds of game hadn't all been turned into cash. When this seemingly bountiful day ended, every resource in Li Qingshan's hands was still only half settled. Only by nailing down each of these things one by one would the third branch truly find its footing. The next day wouldn't be any easier than heading into the mountains. Only the battlefield had shifted from the old forest back to the township office, the market, and the gate of the Zhao family's courtyard. The mountains tested his marksmanship and nerve. The village tested evidence, interests, and who would back down first. Li Qingshan was already prepared to settle every account down to the last figure. This time, he wouldn't leave anyone the slightest opening to turn things around. When Li Qingshan brought the 2 rabbits and 1 pheasant to Zhao Zhanshan's home, Zhao Shanqing wouldn't hear of accepting them. The way she saw it, Li Qingshan had taken a bow into the mountains for the first time. Just making it back safely was a blessing. Those 3 pieces of game, in any ordinary household, would make for several rare meals with meat. The thirdly branch had just made a scene about splitting the household. They had nowhere secure to eat or sleep. Giving meat away at a time like this was overdoing it. Li Qingshan didn't make empty speeches about life-saving deaths. As a boy, he'd nearly lost his life on that mountain, and it was Zhao Zhanshan who'd brought him back. This time, without Big Yellow tracking, warning, and guarding them, they might not have brought back 3 roe deer so smoothly. 2 rabbits and a pheasant out of a total haul of 251 pounds wasn't much, but it was a debt of gratitude that had to be repaid. When she heard 3 roe deer, Zhao Shanqing was truly stunned. She knew Li Qingshan had never known how to hunt before, and she'd certainly never heard of him practicing archery. A young man on his very first trip into the mountains, with 2 equally inexperienced helpers, had not only survived a downpour and a wolf pack, but also brought down 3 roe deer. It sounded more far-fetched than the storyteller at the village entrance. Li Qingshan again chalked it up to natural talent and luck, saying that the moment he got his hands on a bow, he just knew how to draw it. Knocking, aiming, and loosing all felt like he'd practiced for years. As for the real reasons, his experience from a past life, the changes to his body from the health-cultivating fist form, and the jade gourd's warnings at critical moments, those, of course, couldn't be explained to anyone. Zhao Shanqing didn't press further. She only told him that from now on, whenever he went into the mountains, he must always put his life before the game. Her father's ordeal was a ready-made lesson. Even the most seasoned hunter, faced with an enraged wild boar, could have his chest and lungs gored through in an instant. Back then, if not for the 3 hunting dogs desperately buying time and the fellow hunters carrying Zhao Zhanshan back in time, she'd have been the only one left in this house. Li Qingshan took the opening to say that when he went to the market the next day for supplies, he'd try to find a set of fine acupuncture needles. Once he had them, he'd come back to treat Zhao Zhanshan properly. Zhao Shanqing listened half in doubt. Everyone in the village knew Li Qingshan had spent these years often roaming the mountains, and they'd heard he'd learned something from an old traditional doctor, but treating illness and memorizing a few herb names were 2 entirely different things. She didn't dampen his spirits, though, only smiling and agreeing, telling him to come by tomorrow and show his stuff. Inside the room, Zhao Zhanshan heard their conversation clearly. His voice was weaker than it had been a few days ago, yet he made a point of telling his daughter to accept the game. In times like these, bringing real meat to a sick man's home meant more than asking after his health 10 times over. Zhao Zhanshan didn't dare hope an 18-year-old could actually cure him. He just saw that Li Qingshan knew how to repay a kindness and had a sense of responsibility. What he could never set his mind at ease over was never himself, but Zhao Shanqing. The old wound in his chest grew worse by the day, and once he was gone, a young girl alone in the village, guarding a rundown house and a dog, would surely be taken advantage of. That Li Qingshan had brought back game this time, returned Big Yellow, and even thought about a follow-up visit proved at least that there was still one person in the village willing to lend a hand. Zhao Shanqing carried the pheasant and rabbits into the kitchen, deciding to first stew a rabbit to build up her father's strength. The doctor had told her Zhao Zhanshan couldn't eat anything too strongly seasoned, so she skipped the chili peppers and used only a little salt, stewing it slowly. As Li Qingshan left, Big Yellow saw him to the courtyard gate, clearly already treating his mountain teammate like an old friend. By the time Li Qingshan got back to the old Li household, Li Kai's family had already arrived. The original text mistakenly wrote Li Kai as Zhao Gui here, but the ones sitting at the table were Da Zhuang and Erzwang. The one helping in the kitchen was Li Kai's wife, and the one who'd brought 2 bottles of local liquor could only be Li Kai. Zhao Gui, at that moment, was holed up in the old courtyard that had already changed hands, scheming to weasel out of his debt. There was no way he'd show up with liquor to celebrate for Li Qingshan. 2 bottles of local moonshine, at 1 yuan a pound, came to roughly 2 yuan. For a farming household that could barely scrape together any cash all year round. This wasn't a casual gift. It was Li Kai's heartfelt thanks to Li Qingshan for bringing both his sons back safe. Li Qingshan didn't take Dazhuang's next trip up the mountain for granted. He first asked Li Kai whether, in a few days, he'd still be willing to let Dazhuang come along. Terrified his father might say no, Dazhuang jumped in to say that Li Qingshan's marksmanship was downright miraculous, that he'd go no matter what. He was even ready to sneak along in secret. Li Qingshan shut that down on the spot. The old forest was no place for a young man to throw a tantrum. When parents handed over their son, they had to get a whole person back. Li Kai hadn't even said no yet, and here was Dazhuang threatening to run off in secret. That was both disrespectful to his father and something that would erode the trust in their future cooperation. Li Kai had, in fact, already heard his son recount everything that happened on the mountain. Knowing they'd stayed in a hunting shelter, run into a downpour, and been surrounded by a wolf pack. How could he not be afraid? But this was the first time Dazhuang had earned so much meat on his own, and he genuinely wanted to learn a skill that could feed a family. Flatly forbidding it might not even hold him back. In the end, he agreed, on the condition that when they met a fierce beast too dangerous to take on, they mustn't try to be heroes. Better to come home empty-handed than trade a life for money. Dazhuang agreed at once. Seeing his older brother get the go-ahead, Erzwang wanted to speak up and join too. Li Kai cut him off sternly after just the first word. With both sons going into the mountains at once, if something happened to both of them, he and his wife would have nothing left to count on for their old age. Li Qingshan didn't push him. He told Erzwang to wait a while. Once he'd made more trips and honed the routes and hunting methods to be steadier, they'd talk about adding more hands. Li Kai's family was loyal and reliable, and Dazhuang and Erzwang had known him inside and out since childhood. They really were the most fitting long-term partners. But trust, too, had to be built up one safe return at a time. Zhao Hongqi was even less likely to come along for now. His mother was ill, his wife had just given birth, and the household couldn't spare him inside or out. However much he coveted the income from the mountains, he couldn't leave a house full of sick and frail women and children behind. Having settled the matter of the next trip, Li Qingshan rolled up his sleeves and went into the kitchen. Han Xiao and Li Kai's wife had already cleaned 2 pheasants, 2 rabbits, and a masked palm civet. Li Qingshan first heated the pot, poured in soybean oil, quite precious in that era, then added ginger slices and fried them until the edges turned golden. When the chicken pieces went in, the oil hissed sharply. The firm pheasant meat was stir-fried until the skin gleamed golden, and the aroma of meat quickly spread from the low kitchen throughout the whole courtyard. He wasn't in a hurry to add water. Instead, he first used the oil to force out some of the chicken's moisture. Pheasants got plenty of exercise, so their meat was firmer than farm chicken. Stewing it directly would waste firewood and still not turn out tender. Once the surface was slightly dry, he added scallion segments, dried chili peppers, and a little Sichuan peppercorn, drizzled soy sauce down the side of the pot, and finally added salt and hot water to reduce the sauce. The household had none of the full range of spices like angelica root or star anise. Even the Sichuan peppercorns were nearly gone, so he couldn't produce the complex flavors of a later-day restaurant. But for people who ordinarily ate nothing but bran, wild greens, and pickled vegetables, soybean oil, chicken, and scallion and ginger together were already luxurious enough. Catching the scent, Dazhuang immediately proposed bringing a pot on the next trip up the mountain. Li Qingshan laughed that all he thought about was eating, but he didn't object. Dry rations could keep a person alive, but hot food could quickly restore strength in the cold, damp mountain woods. Proper cookware was already on the list for the next round of supplies. The aroma drifted over the courtyard wall, and the first branch, the second branch, and Old Man Li soon couldn't sit still. In the main room, Old Man Li swallowed hard while cursing the third branch for wasting money, claiming all the game should be sold for grain and never eaten in a single meal. But what truly galled him wasn't the waste. It was that the meat hadn't been carried to his seat at the head of the table. Li Qingshu of the first branch was so eager for a taste that he paced back and forth. Li Dakawei sent his wife, Sun Lan, out to sweet-talk them, hoping to use her standing as the eldest aunt to get a plate of meat and pour a little liquor. But before Sun Lan could even step out the door, the second branch's daughter-in-law, Wu Xiu, had already beaten her to the table. Wu Xiu first praised how fragrant the chicken smelled, then asked how it tasted, clearly waiting for the host to offer a polite, "have a taste." But Li Qingshan pointedly gave her no such opening, only asking what she wanted. She circled around with a few remarks, but the invitation never came. Losing face, she began accusing the third branch of not knowing how to manage a household, predicting that once they'd eaten through the game, they'd surely come crawling back to beg the old Li family to take them in. Li Qingshan dropped the courtesy too, saying flatly that he hadn't set out bowls and chopsticks for the first or second branch tonight, and he certainly wouldn't be handing back meat he'd hunted himself. Wu Xiao stormed back to her room, and the more she smelled the meat, the more wretched she felt about her lot. In the past, the reason she'd supported the old man in dumping the work on the third branch was that her own household got to profit from it. Now that the third branch had just decided to leave, she vented her resentment over having no meat onto her husband, Li Erkawei. The first branch saw all this, and Sun Lan simply gave up going out. She knew that even if she swallowed her pride, she'd only hit the same wall as Wu Xiao. Yet Li Dakue and his son interpreted Li Qingshan's refusal as cold-hearted and ungrateful, as though, back when they'd seized the third branch's grain and income, they'd ever given a thought to family bonds. At last the meal in the courtyard was fully laid out. 2 stir-fried chickens, 2 stewed rabbits, and a masked palm civet were set on the table, and the 2 bottles of liquor Li Kai had brought were opened. When Li Sankue used to eat in the old Li household, he'd always had to wait for his father and older brother to pick up their chopsticks first. This time, for the first time, he welcomed guests as the master of his own home, telling his wife, children, daughter-in-law, and Li Kai's family that there was no need to stand on ceremony. Lu Guixiang still kept the habit built up over years. She sat at the table, not daring to reach her chopsticks toward the plates with the most meat, taking only a bit of the broth and the scraps. When the whole family used to share a table, she, the widowed daughter-in-law, held the lowest standing. The good dishes never came around to her, and if she ate too slowly, all that was left were empty plates. Seeing this, Li Qingshan directly placed 2 chicken drumsticks into her bowl and told her to eat without worry. Han Xiu added that from now on, no one at the third branch's table was born only to eat pickled vegetables. Looking at the drumsticks in her bowl, Lu Guixiang was flustered at first, and only then did a genuine smile finally appear. The meal didn't squander all the game. Li Qingshan had already arranged how to preserve it. The remaining 2 rabbits and 2 pheasants would first be fried in oil and placed somewhere cool and airy, to be eaten within 2 days. Any extra rabbit meat would be smoked or salt-cured to extend its shelf life. What he'd take to the market the next day to sell was the roe deer meat, about 150 pounds after skinning and gutting, along with the raccoon dog. He kept the pheasants and rabbits for his family to build up their strength, not because he didn't know how precious grain was, but because he'd calculated the next step. Practicing the health-cultivating fist form and building up his pure yang true energy, his daily consumption far exceeded an ordinary person's. His family, long short on oil and meat, also needed nourishment. Trading all the meat for cash and letting 4 people keep going hungry wasn't real thrift. As for the 40 yuan owed to Li Hu, the agreed term was a month, and only a few days had passed. As long as he later brought down a suitable wild boar or game of equal value, he could clear the debt. Rather than emptying out his cash right away, it was better to first buy cookware, oil and salt, and moving day essentials, and get the new life set up. A few sips of liquor in, the mood at the table gradually livened up. Da Zhuang and Erzwang told the story of the stormy night and the wolf pack in vivid detail. Han Xiu listened with wave after wave of lingering fear, and Li Kai repeatedly urged his sons that from now on they must take Li Qingshan's orders. After the meal, Li Qingshan set aside a large bowl of rabbit meat and hot broth, and had Da Zhuang deliver it to Zhao Hongqi's place on his way home. Zhao Hongqi's sick mother needed nourishment, and his wife in confinement after childbirth was also short on rich food. Not being able to join the hunt didn't mean he should be shut out of this group of young men's mutual aid. The portion in that bowl wasn't large, but it secured the human bonds of the next crew in advance. Hunting relied not just on bows and dogs. Hauling game, looking after families, and holding down the home front mattered just as much. While clearing the table, Han Xiu still couldn't bear to pour out even a bit of the broth, and even wiped the oil from the bottoms of the plates clean with a steamed bun. She asked whether all that leftover meat would spoil. After all, the third branch had no ice cellar and not enough salt to cure it all at once. Li Qingshan sorted the game again into 3 categories. The roe deer meat that had to be sold the next day was placed separately in the coolest part of the cellar, with the raccoon dog pressed beside it. The rabbits and pheasants to be eaten within 2 days were first sealed on the surface with hot oil, then, once cooled, hung up to air. The meat that needed to keep longer was cut into even strips, rubbed thoroughly with a thin layer of salt, to be set up on a rack and smoked once they'd moved into the new courtyard. This kind of handling wasn't long-term preservation in the modern sense. It was just racing against summer temperatures. Setting out before dawn and selling quickly at low prices was also part of preservation. Once the sun climbed high and the meat's color and smell changed, no one might want it even at a penny less per pound. When Dazhuang carried off the bowl of meat for Zhao Hongqi's family, Li Qingshan reminded him again not to frame it as charity, only to say the hunting crew had had its first big haul and was giving a taste to a partner who couldn't come along. Zhao Hongqi was a proud sort. If he felt they were pitying his family's poverty, he might refuse instead. Listening to her son lay out each arrangement, Han Xiu realized for the first time that he was no longer just a boy who loafed around the village. Which game went to whom? How much to sell? How much to keep? He had an account of it all in his head. What they'd called being a spendthrift was only what the old Li family said, because they couldn't see the share they might have gotten. On the other side of the courtyard wall, the quarrel between the first and second branches still hadn't stopped. The more Wu Xiu thought about it back in her room, the angrier she got, demanding of Li Erkue why. When they were equally sons of the old Li family, the third branch's household could eat a whole plate of chicken while their own couldn't get so much as a single piece. Li Erkue didn't dare admit this was the result of his father's favoritism and his own long habit of profiting off the third branch. He could only turn his anger back on his wife. Sun Lan had at first counted herself lucky for not going out to beg for meat, but hearing the commotion from the second branch, she too began to grumble at Li Dakue. She reminded her husband that the work points, grain, and odd jobs the third branch used to turn in had all gone to the big family. Yet just one day after they'd split off, the old man was making them fend for themselves. If Qingshu's schooling expenses continued to be borne by the whole family in the future, the first branch would still take the biggest share, and the second branch would sooner or later make an even bigger fuss. Li Qingshu cared nothing for the strife between the two branches. He only leaned against the window, staring at the empty plates on the third branch's table. He told himself that once he enrolled in the upper primary class and became a cadre or a worker someday, a bit of chicken would be nothing at all. But such daydreams couldn't fill his stomach here and now, and every time the meat's aroma drifted over, he hated Li Qingshan all the more for not offering it up. Within the same courtyard, the two sides now understood managing a household in entirely different ways. The third branch was working out how to preserve the meat, how partners would share the profits, how to care for the sick. The first and second branches were only debating why others had meat in their bowls while they had none. After dark, everyone dispersed. Li Qingshan told Dazhuang to bring the handcart over before 2 in the morning, then to rest as early as possible. Shirshi village was nearly an hour's walk from the Tuxiang market. In summer the sky brightened early, and the first meat buyers often arrived by 3 or 4. If he waited until the sun rose high, the meat would spoil easily and the customers would scatter. To sell it off fast, he'd have to travel in the dark. The next day, before dawn, Dazhuang and Erzwang arrived at the courtyard right on time. Erzwang couldn't go into the mountains this time, but he could help work the market and pull the cart. The three of them loaded about 150 pounds of roe deer meat and 1 raccoon dog onto the handcart and covered it with cloth. Big Yellow was left guarding the cellar entrance over the remaining game, to keep anyone in the Old Leaf family from sneaking off with it while the third branch was out. Before setting off, Li Qingshan discussed the household split arrangements with his parents once more. Simply splitting Li Sankue's family out of Old Man Li's household registration wasn't enough. Lu Guixiang was the widow of the eldest brother. If she stayed under the same registration as her in-laws, then matters of the house plot, grain rations, and remarriage could all easily be manipulated by others down the line. Li Qingshan needed to establish his own independent registration too, so he could rightfully apply for a house plot and handle the new courtyard and future production. So they planned to set up 3 separate registrations, one for Li Sankue and his wife, one for Li Qingshan, and one for Lu Guixiang. The 3 of them would be split out from the old big household, and then, according to actual circumstances, apply for 2 house plots or the related rights. To others this arrangement might seem excessive, but to Li Qingshan, having lived a whole life over again, it was crucial. Household registration, like a house deed, was just a piece of paper in ordinary times, but in a dispute it determined who had the standing to speak. The reason Zhao Gui could use the old courtyard to set a trap And the reason the old Li family dared to order the third branch around at will was precisely that residence, land, and registration were all clutched in the elders' hands. The three of them walked nearly an hour in the dark, reaching the market only a little after 3. The horizon showed only a layer of grayish-white. The first sellers of vegetables and eggs and the early shift laborers had already appeared. Li Qingshan picked a good spot, lifted the covering cloth, and divided the roe deer meat into 2 piles by male and female, setting the raccoon dog off to one side. At the time, pork sold for about 40 cents a pound. Wild boar, because its gamey smell was slightly lower, and roe deer meat normally went for 31 to 32 cents. Li Qingshan had no intention of burning a whole morning over a penny or two, so he directly priced the buck roe deer meat at 30 cents and the doe at 29, lower than the comparable meats around him. The first customer, an old man, still haggled out of habit. Li Qingshan didn't push back hard. Instead, he pointed at the 2 piles and said 29 cents could only buy doe meat. The buck had to be 30. The old man didn't understand why buck and doe differed by a penny. So Li Qingshan, playing to the topic men of that era cared about most, said half-truthfully that buck roe deer meat was better for building up the body. The meat itself was rich in protein and did provide real nourishment to people chronically short on oil and rich food. He just packaged it into a more memorable selling point. The line worked instantly. The old man, who'd only meant to buy a pound, changed his order to 2, and several other men nearby crowded over. Some bought a pound to try it. Others simply cut off 3 pounds, afraid that if they were a step slow the good meat would be snatched up. What truly made the meat sell fast was still the price and freshness, but a simple line resolved the customer's hesitation for them. Da Zhuang, watching from the side, was stunned. Only now did he understand that bringing down game was only half the job. Turning it into cash was a skill of its own. Li Qingshan handled the cutting, weighing, and taking money. Da Zhuang and Erzwang split duties, one keeping the line in order, the other wrapping meat and making change. To avoid short waiting, he'd sooner cut a little heavy with every stroke. Rural markets ran on reputation. Cheat a bit on your first sale, and next time no one might even come near your stall. The first wave of customers who crowded over were mostly nearby farmers and early rising laborers. They didn't have much cash on hand and often cut only half a pound or a pound. Li Qingshan didn't mind the small orders and cut just as cleanly. When people picked up the meat to check its color and smell, he didn't stop them. He only kept the arrow-wounded spots separate from the normal cuts, letting them see clearly before buying. Halfway through selling, someone doubted that roe deer, not being a domesticated animal, would have tough meat. Li Qingshan told them to slice it thin and stir-fry it fast, or stew it slowly with pickled cabbage. It couldn't be treated like fatty pork, prized only for its grease. Roe deer had little fat to begin with, which was why it cost about a dime less. What you bought was solid meat, not lard to render. One woman thought 29 cents was still too high and wanted to trade eggs for part of it. Li Qingshan saw the eggs were fresh and converted them at the market's normal price, not driving the price down just because she was eager for meat. Erzwang packed the eggs separately off to the side to take home later, in effect trading part of a meat sale for a food reserve for the new home. Someone else, seeing the buck meat sell fast, deliberately pointed at a piece of it and claimed it was doe, demanding a penny less. Da Zhuang nearly got into it with him, but Li Qingshan clearly explained the cut marks and placement of the 2 piles, then let the man choose for himself. In business, nothing was worse than brawling in the street over a few cents. Once a stall descended into chaos, onlookers would suspect something was wrong with the meat. Seeing he couldn't gain any advantage, the man had no choice but to buy at 30 cents. Watching customers behind him saw that the stall keeper was neither a pushover nor a troublemaker, and felt all the more at ease. The raccoon dog meat wasn't as well received as the roe deer, and the last buyer haggled the price down several times. Li Qingshan reckoned things had already gone smoothly earlier and didn't waste time on the final piece of game. He gave a little within reason, and in exchange cleared out the whole cart. The 50 yuan wasn't a tidy sum from simply multiplying 150 pounds by 30 cents. It included the 29-cent difference on the doe meat, the raccoon dog sale price, and the extra bits given away while cutting. Only after packing up did Li Qingshan count each stack of small bills again, confirming he hadn't made any errors in the rush. Before the sun had fully risen, the handcart was already empty. About 150 pounds of roe deer meat, plus 1 raccoon dog, had brought in 50 yuan in all. The 3 of them stood by the empty cart counting the money, and even Erzwang felt like he was dreaming. For many farming households, 50 yuan was nearly a sum they could only save up slowly over a whole year, and Li Qingshan had traded for it in a single trip up the mountain. But when it came time to split the take, Dazhuang was the first to balk. Li Qingshan, figuring the two of them had gone into the mountains together, was ready to hand over 25 yuan outright. Dazhuang wouldn't take it, no matter what. He knew full well that up on the mountain his main job had been hauling and lending a hand. All 3 roe deer had been shot by Li Qingshan, and the routes and the wolf pack crisis had been handled by Li Qingshan too. If he walked off with half, then no matter who took the role of lead hunter next time, it wouldn't be fair. He'd only agree to take 5 yuan, and explained that this was the rule his father, Li Kai, had set the night before. From now on, anyone going into the mountains with Li Qingshan could earn at most 2 yuan a day per person, or a share by a reasonable ratio. If the 2 brothers went together, they could take 2 shares, but they must never take the bigger cut just because there were more of them. Dazhuang gave a very concrete example. If 3 days' worth of game sold for 100 yuan, then he and Erzwang together would take 12 yuan at most. Li Qingshan bore the bow and arrows, the routes, the judgment calls, and the main risk. He ought to have the largest share. Hunting under someone else, Dazhuang might not even get income and meat like this at all. This wasn't self-deprecation. It was establishing a set of rules that could sustain long-term cooperation. If they split the money evenly on the very first big haul, then as more helpers joined, the lead hunter might take on all the risk yet be left with almost nothing. But if he shared none of it, no crew would ever put in real effort. Setting a ceiling based on labor, days, and contribution looked after the partners while also preventing future fallings out over money. Seeing how firm Dazhuang was, Li Qingshan had no choice but to take back 20 yuan and let Dazhuang keep 5. Then, from his own share, he took out 4 more yuan, 2 each for Dazhuang and Erzwang, as extra hardship pay for the market run and the hauling. Tallied up, Dazhuang got 7 yuan in all, Erzwang got 2, and Li Qingshan still had 41 yuan in hand. The 2 brothers clutched the money, their excitement even more plain on their faces than when they'd eaten meat. For the first time, Dazhuang was sure that going into the mountains wasn't just an extra mouthful of food for the family. It could become a real source of income. Erzwang grew all the more determined to earn a spot on the next trip. Li Qingshan went over the profit-sharing rules once more, so the 2 families wouldn't understand it differently once they got back to the village. Erzwang's 2 yuan this time was extra helper's pay, not equal to a full share for actually hunting. Dazhuang's 5 yuan was the base cut for 2 days of hunting, and the additional 2 yuan was something Li Qingshan gave voluntarily. Next time, if Erzwang truly went into the mountains, then with each brother bearing his own risk and hauling, it would be counted as 2 shares. Spelling out the accounts on the spot was far safer than arguing later from memory. Game in the mountains was sometimes plentiful, sometimes scarce. If they came back empty-handed, everyone would share the loss together. And if they hit a big score, they mustn't suddenly overturn the ratio just because there was more money. Li Kai, willing the night before to let his sons take less, was in fact protecting this newly formed crew. Dazhuang also agreed to report the figures to his parents back home exactly as they were, adding and subtracting nothing. 7 yuan already exceeded the cash income an ordinary farming household commonly saw in a month. To take any more wouldn't be decent. It would leave the cooperation with only this one round. Having split the money, Li Qingshan set out to buy household goods for the new home. But the supply and marketing co-op didn't open until 7:30, and it had just gone past 5. The 3 of them pulled the empty handcart in that direction, and along the way ran unexpectedly into Li Sankue, Old Man Li, Li Dakue, and Li Qingshu. They too had come in the dark to handle the household split. Old Man Li hadn't slept well all night, his head full of the aroma of the 3rd branch's chicken from the evening before. The more he thought about it, the more unfilial he found it. Before the sky had even brightened, he'd hurried his eldest son, 3rd son, and eldest grandson out the door, itching to strike the 3rd branch from the registration at once. The old man still firmly believed that 4 people with no land and no grain couldn't hold out long on hunting alone, and that when the time came they'd surely return to Caodao. Li Qingshu had his own business. He was going to the Tuxiang Middle School to enroll in the rural spare time upper primary class. July and September fell in the slack farming period when hoes were set aside, and the countryside would run concentrated literacy and upper primary courses, usually 2 class periods in the afternoon. For now the teaching site was still at Tuxiang Middle School, nearly an hour's walk from Shirshi village, and few people took part. Once the commune system came in the following year, the courses might move down to the individual production brigades, and the earliest students to complete their studies and perform well had a chance to become brigade literacy teachers, or even to keep rising. The way out that Li Qingshan wanted to find for Wang Chunxiao lay hidden right here. Forcibly fleeing the marriage only solved one day. To truly make the Wang family change their decision, Wang Chunxiao had to gain a status more valuable than marrying the party secretary's son. As long as she caught the last few sessions of the course and became a literacy teacher on the strength of her ability to read, her family would reassess her marriage to Zhao Ba. This path wouldn't take effect right away, but it was far steadier than running away from home again. A daughter her father saw as good only for trading for connections, and a person who might serve as a brigade teacher and handle official affairs, carried entirely different weight when marriage was discussed. Seeing his son's handcart already sold empty, Li Sankuei first asked whether the meat had gone well. Li Qingshan only said he'd kept the price low and sold out fast, not reporting the 50 yuan of income in front of old man Li. The township government hadn't opened yet, and the group was hungry from the walk, so Li Qingshan suggested going to a breakfast stall first. The stall was run by a husband and wife, with a few old wooden tables set up outside the door. Ordinary customers mostly ordered only steamed buns and pickled vegetables. Only those a bit better off would spring for a serving of hot tofu or congee. Fried dough sticks used a lot of oil, and meat buns used even more meat. Usually people would hesitate even just to catch a whiff. Li Qingshan walked up to the stall and directly ordered 8 fried dough sticks, 12 fist-sized meat buns, and 8 bowls of congee. That one call fell over everything around at once. Erzwang asked whether he'd ordered too much, and Li Sankuei also urged his son that having money was no reason to spend like this. After all, there were still debts to repay, a family to start, and a new house to set up. But Li Qingshan said that from now on, the money he earned would first go to filling his own people's bellies. The several of them had walked here since the middle of the night, and Da Zhuang and his brother had pulled the cart the whole way. One breakfast wouldn't ruin the family's foundation. Fried dough sticks were 4 cents each, 12 meat buns came to 96 cents, 8 dough sticks to 32 cents, and with 8 bowls of congee, the stall woman rounded down the change, for a total of 1 yuan 30. Li Qingshan paid on the spot. Old man Li, Li Dakue, and Li Qingshu, sitting at the next table, saw him pay and automatically assumed these snacks included a share for them. All three cursed him aloud for coming into money young and being unable to hold on to it, while inwardly they'd long since been reckoning how many buns and dough sticks each of them would eat. While waiting for the food, a young woman with a red hair tie and a ponytail came to buy hot tofu. It had already been cut when she realized she'd forgotten to bring money. The stall woman, a complete stranger to her, wouldn't extend credit. Seeing that the girl was pretty, Li Qingshu jumped in to plead for her, claiming it was only 2 cents, and there was no harm in her paying the next day. The stall woman shot back. If the person didn't come the next day, would he cover it? Li Qingshu shut his mouth at once. Li Qingshan paid the 2 cents for the girl. He wasn't showing off in public. Rather, from her clothes, her way of speaking, and the scent of vanishing cream on her, he judged that she wasn't an ordinary local farmer, and that having just arrived in Tuxiang, she most likely had a job. 2 cents to strike up a bit of goodwill might spare a good deal of trouble down the line. The girl was named Su Wanyin, and she had indeed just come to work in Tuxiang that very day. She noted Li Qingshan's name and said she'd certainly pay him back later. Li Qingshan only said it was a trifle not worth minding, and invited her to sit and eat together. When the stall woman brought over the first plate of buns and dough sticks, Li Qingshu quickly waved for her to set it on his own table. Li Qingshan calmly reminded her that these were what he'd ordered for himself, his father, and the Dazhuang brothers. If the 3 men beside them wanted to eat, they should pay separately. Only then did the stall woman realize the 2 tables weren't together, and she immediately took the plate back. Old man Li slammed the table in rage on the spot. That old table, loose with age, actually cracked under a single slap. The stallkeeper came out from the back kitchen with a vegetable cleaver in hand, demanding 2 dimes in compensation at cost, or else he'd hand the matter to the police. Li Dakue wouldn't pay for his father, and Li Qingshu even pretended not to see. Old man Li might dare to throw his seniority around in the village, but outside Shirshi village he didn't dare but heads with a shopkeeper who genuinely had the right of it. So he had no choice but to fish out the only 2 dimes he had on him. That had been the money he'd promised to spend on half a pound of pork. Even after handing over the money, the old man refused to leave the table, saying that just sitting a while cost nothing. Seeing that he'd already paid the compensation, the stall woman didn't press him to go. And so the grandfather and 2 others could only sit with empty stomachs. watching plate after plate of steaming breakfast at the next table. Li Qingshu quietly grumbled that Li Qingshan had deliberately failed to clarify the relationship between the two tables. Li Dakue likewise felt that since his son had money, buying the elders a meal was only proper. But from ordering to paying, Li Qingshan had never once invited them. It was the three of them who had, on their own, counted someone else's food into their own mouths. To salvage some face, Old Man Li added that this breakfast was enough to feed an ordinary family for several days, and the more he ate, the more it proved the third branch would squander everything fast. His words were hard, but his gaze kept trailing after the meat buns. The stall woman saw it clearly and deliberately reminded Su Wanning in front of everyone that when judging people, you couldn't just listen to what they said. You had to see who was actually willing to pay those 2 cents. Li Qingshu, having just made a whole speech on the girl's behalf and then gone silent when it came time to pay, felt all the more now that everyone around was laughing at him. The three of them not only didn't get any buns, but even lost the meat money they'd meant to take home for a treat to a single table. On the surface, Li Dakue echoed his father's, "Let the third branch ruin themselves first," but inwardly he'd already begun to resent the old man for meddling. At the other table, the steam rose thick. Li Qingshan handed Su Wanning a meat bun and a bowl of congee, and only then did Da Zhuang, Erzwang, and Li Sankue dig in freely. The buns were large and the dough sticks thick. The three of them ate 6 buns, 3 dough sticks, and 5 bowls of congee between them, until they were so stuffed they kept rubbing their bellies. Su Wanning finished 1 bun, 1 dough stick, and 1 bowl of congee, and likewise couldn't fit in another bite. The remaining 5 buns, 4 dough sticks, and 2 bowls of congee were all polished off by Li Qingshan alone. His consumption had grown enormous since he'd started practicing the health-cultivating fist form, and after all the continuous hauling and mountain walking, his appetite clearly outstripped what it had once been. Seeing everyone's astonished looks, he only said he was 7/10 full, offering no explanation that every cycling of his Puryong true energy required his body to supply energy. After finishing at this table, he separately packed up 4 more buns and 4 dough sticks to bring back for Han Xiao and Lu Guixiang. Only then did Li Sanke remember his wife and daughter-in-law were still busy tidying up at home, and a trace of shame crossed his face. There was still a while before the township government opened for work, so Li Qingshan practiced a set of the health-cultivating fist form on the open ground nearby. The early morning sun fell on his body, and the jade gourd at his chest again gave off a faint, all but invisible glow, slowly absorbing the dawn light. As the movements ended, a portion of the large amount of food he'd just eaten had already been digested, and the warm current within his body flowed even more smoothly than the day before. Su Wanning watched, entranced, until he drew the form to a close. Only then did she suddenly remember she had work. The place she worked was precisely the supply and marketing co-op, and since it was her first day on the job, she needed to open up early and familiarize herself with the goods. Hearing that Li Qingshan had been waiting for the co-op to open in the first place, she offered to take them over ahead of time. This convenience far exceeded 2 cents worth of hot tofu, and it proved Li Qingshan's earlier judgment of her status hadn't been wrong. At the co-op, Su Wanning opened the door and let the three in, asking Li Qingshan to write out a list. Li Qingshan set pen to paper right away, his handwriting clear and neat. Su Wanning was surprised that a young man from a mountain village could read and write, and even urged him to try applying to be a teacher at Tuxiang Middle School someday. Li Qingshan still attributed his abilities to that old Taoist in the mountains, and for the time being didn't take up the suggestion. The co-op's shelves weren't well stocked, and many goods had only small amounts in reserve. Su Wanning first confirmed each item, to avoid writing up a list that couldn't be fully filled. The iron pots were carried out from the back storeroom, their rims free of cracks. The jars were each tapped and listened to guard against hidden fractures. The kerosene, soybean oil, and liquor were each measured out in separate containers, so their smells wouldn't mix. What he set out to buy nearly filled an empty new home from a bare shell to something you could cook in. 1 large iron pot for 3 yuan, 1 small iron pot for 1 yuan 30, 3 bars of soap for 60 cents, 10 boxes of matches for 20 cents, 2 pounds of kerosene for 80 cents, 10 pickling jars for 1 yuan 30, a pound of brown sugar for 60 cents, a pound of white sugar for 80 cents, 5 pounds of moonshine for 5 yuan, 5 pounds of soybean oil for 3 yuan 50, a pound of sesame oil for 1 yuan, 2 pounds of glutinous rice sticks for 1 yuan, 2 pounds of walnut shortbread for 1 yuan 70, plus 2 pairs of embroidered round-toed cloth shoes for 5 yuan. The whole list came to 30 yuan. The two pots handled daily cooking and processing game. The matches and kerosene ensured lighting. The pickling jars could preserve meat and vegetables. The oil, sugar, and pastries served both to build up the family's strength and to smooth over social ties. The two pairs of ready-made shoes were for Han Xiao and Lu Guixiang. The old shoes on their feet had long since worn thin. After buying this batch of goods and deducting the breakfast, the buns and dough sticks packed for the family, and the hot tofu he'd covered for Su Wanyin, only around 10 yuan remained of the 41. Looking only at the cash in hand, it seemed he'd spent most of it in a single morning. But looking at the physical goods on the handcart, he'd traded money, easily borrowed away, snatched away, or casually parceled out by others, into a household foundation the third branch would use every single day. The liquor and pastries weren't purely for indulging the palate, either. Zhao Zhenshan needed a follow-up examination. Li Shengli would need continuous acupuncture from here on, and after moving into the new courtyard, there'd be comings and goings with village cadres and neighbors. In this era, showing up empty-handed wasn't a breach of etiquette, but bringing a little liquor and sugar after someone had done you a big favor could often turn owing a debt of gratitude into a give-and-take relationship. Li Qingshan had only just come into 41 yuan and spent 30 in one go. Seemingly extravagant, but in reality, every item addressed a concrete need after the move. If he clung to the money but had no pot, no oil, and no lamp, then no matter how big the new courtyard was, there'd be no getting through daily life in it. As Su Wanyin weighed out the loose goods, she let the scale dip down just a touch on every item, never short waiting. Seeing the two pairs of women's shoes on the list, she quietly asked Dazhuang whether Li Qingshan already had a sweetheart. Dazhuang answered honestly that he'd never heard of any, and only then did the puzzlement on her face fade. Before leaving, Su Wanyin grabbed a handful of fruit candy and stuffed it into Li Qingshan's hand, saying it repaid the earlier favor of the hot tofu. The candy's value had long exceeded 2 cents, and neither of them pointed it out. Once the handcart was loaded up again, Li Qingshan returned to the breakfast stall to meet up with his father. The township government didn't officially open for business until 8:30, so he planned to use the last bit of spare time to go to the township clinic and find some acupuncture needles. The Tuxiang clinic was very small. Only 2 Western medicine doctors, 1 traditional doctor, 2 nurses, plus a lab technician and an accountant. Country folk were loath to spend on medical fees and often came only when an illness had truly become unbearable, so the clinic usually wasn't crowded. The moment Li Qingshan entered the courtyard, he saw Li Shengli, the head of Shirshi village. Li Shengli had been a soldier in his youth and had taken a bullet in the leg. Though the slug had been removed, the old wound flared up year after year. Whenever the weather turned rainy or after exertion, the whole leg ached, pulling outward from deep within the wound. In bad spells, he couldn't even sleep at night. Township doctors, Western medicine doctors, and traditional doctors had all seen it. Medicine could ease it for a while, but never cure it at the root. He hadn't come specially for Li Qingshan this time. Rather, hearing that Elder Hua was passing through Tuxiang, he wanted to have a renowned doctor take another look. Tormented for years by the old wound, Li Shengli had long since given up hope on the words root cure, asking only to ache a few fewer nights when the weather changed. That day the clinic also had a rather well-regarded old traditional doctor, Elder Hua, along with a young woman named Xiao Ting who accompanied him. Another young male doctor, surnamed Sun, kept a look of resentment on his face upon seeing Elder Hua glance at Li Qingshan a few extra times. Li Qingshan had only meant to buy needles, but after hearing about Li Shengli's condition, he said he could stop the pain for at least a week and gradually cure it within 3 months. Dr. Sun was the first to raise doubts. An 18-year-old rural youth who couldn't even produce any formal medical experience, opening his mouth to say he could handle a years-old bullet wound. It did sound like boasting. Li Qingshan didn't argue with him. Instead, he first asked Elder Hua about another prescription. That was the medicine Zhao Zhanshan was taking. The direction of the Rohuangting formula was right, but the 2 ingredients Fulin and Tianyu were superfluous. With the patient's heart and lungs damaged and his qi and blood depleted, adding these 2 would only tend to throw the medicine's properties into disorder. Switching to Sungui would suit his current state better. Once he'd spoken a few obscure herb names and the reasoning for the additions and subtractions, Elder Hua's expression changed at once. Reciting a formula was easy. Knowing when to drop an ingredient and why to substitute one was true understanding of the disease mechanism. Li Qingshan then examined Li Shengli's leg. The old wound had healed over on the surface, but the real problem might be one of 2 kinds. 1. where the injured tissue had formed an abnormal capsule and inflammation that irritated the surrounding areas. The other, where the nerve itself had been damaged over the long term, sending out continuous pain even with no fresh injury. He first had Li Shengli point out the deepest spot of pain, then compared the changes on clear days, rainy days, and after exertion. Next, he pressed above and below the wound, observing whether the pain radiated in a fixed direction or stayed in one spot. Li Shengli said that sometimes, even with no redness or swelling, it still felt as if a cord were pulling upward inside his leg, especially at night. This description made nerve pain the more likely cause. With ongoing inflammation and an abnormal capsule, the localized tenderness, heat, and swelling were usually more consistent. Now, with little change on the surface but the pain recurring along the old wound's path, it fit the second kind better. Dr. Sun thought these claims merely restated the patient's sensations in different words and couldn't prove 3 needles would work. Elder Hua didn't speak up to stop it, because a medical judgment ultimately had to come down to results. He too wanted to see just how much skill this young man who could revise Zhao Zhanshan's prescription had beneath the needle. If it were the first kind, he'd need several acupoints working together. If the second, 3 needles would be enough to verify. After palpating and asking about the direction the pain traveled, Li Qingshan judged it closer to the latter. Elder Hua yielded the clinic's available acupuncture needles to him. At the first needle, Li Shengli felt only a local numbness. After the second went in, the years-long pulling sensation deep inside suddenly loosened. At the third, Li Qingshan sent the Puryang true energy he'd only recently gathered along the needle shaft into the meridian. In his current state, the Puryang true energy could only form an extremely fine thread. Send too much and he'd rapidly drain himself. Send too little and it wouldn't be enough to affect the old wound. Using an ordinary acupuncture needle, before the silver needles were even in hand, he carefully controlled the force, letting the warm current stay only in the meridian region that needed calming. Throughout the treatment, he kept asking about changes in the numbness, distension, and warmth. From his initial wariness, Li Shengli gradually noticed that the warm sensation wasn't running about wildly, but spreading slowly along the line that had ached the most for years. Watching the subtle trembling of the needle handle from the side, Elder Hua had already confirmed that Li Qingshan not only located the points accurately, but also handled the needle with great steadiness. This force was still faint, not enough to repair years of damage in one go, but it could temporarily calm the abnormal transmission and help the wounded area begin to recover. Li Qingshan withdrew the needles and had Li Shengli stand and walk a few steps. Li Shengli didn't dare put weight on it at first, then tried stepping out, the doubt on his face turning bit by bit into shock. That dull ache that never truly went away had not caught up with him. Squatting and lifting his leg no longer pulled the way they used to. He walked another round in the courtyard, deliberately stepping onto the stairs a few times. The stabbing sensation that had been most pronounced when raising his leg didn't appear. Only the area near the old wound still felt slightly stiff. Li Shengli had been a soldier and wouldn't fake a recovery just to give a young man face. On the spot, he reported every sensation exactly as it was. Li Qingshan didn't exaggerate to seize the moment. He pointed out that the stiffness remained, meaning the damage hadn't disappeared. Today's 3 needles only proved the direction of the diagnosis while giving the body a recovery window free of abnormal pain interference. If Li Shengli kept hauling heavy things or traveling long distances within this week, the effect would be used up early. Dr. Sun beside them still wanted to say it was mere coincidence, but Elder Hua already knew the outcome. To accurately distinguish the 2 conditions before treatment, then verify the judgment with 3 needles, was absolutely not a matter of luck. Li Qingshan explained that today only temporarily cut off the pain, that the effect would last about a week, and it couldn't be taken as a complete cure. With continuous treatment using ordinary needles, it would take about 3 months. With better needles and accompanying recuperation, the time could be shortened further. Elder Hua offered on the spot to take him as a disciple. Such judgment and technique were far too rare in a young man, and he was unwilling to see a piece of uncut jade buried in a mountain village. But Li Qingshan gently declined. In his past life, he'd already had a complete lineage. What he lacked now was physical accumulation and suitable tools, not a need to take a new master. Moreover, entering Elder Hua's school would add contact and constraints, which was bad for concealing the Puryang true energy and the jade gourd. Elder Hua wasn't angered. Instead, he took out a set of ancestral silver needles from among his belongings. The full set was 15 needles in all, complete in every length and thickness. At the time, an ordinary silver needle alone might be worth a yuan. So 15 would be at least 15 yuan. And more importantly, the feel and conductivity of an old match set were not something the temporarily bought steel needles could compare to. Li Qingshan was unwilling to take them for nothing, but Elder Hua said good needles should go to someone who could use them. He had only one condition: the door to discipleship would always be open. If Li Qingshan still didn't wish to become his disciple, he could come to compare notes on questions of medical theory in the future. With the silver needles, Li Qingshan re-estimated Li Shungli's course of treatment. The original 3 months could be shortened to about 2, but he'd still need punctual acupuncture and mustn't keep overusing the leg just because it didn't hurt today. Li Shungli agreed again and again. As head of Shirshi village, and having been through a hail of bullets, he understood best the difference between real skill and mere talk. Li Qingshan's 3 needles not only spared him the pain, but also, without anyone noticing, added one more weighty witness for the 3rd branch in the village. Before parting, Elder Hua asked once more about Zhao Zhanshan's condition. Li Qingshan didn't hide that the patient had been badly gored by a wild boar, with his heart and lungs long damaged, and also made clear that he hadn't yet examined him in person and could only surmise from the current prescription. Elder Hua approved of him for not, just because he'd just produced an effect, describing every illness as easy to treat. The true weight of medical skill lay not in promising a cure every time, but in knowing which judgments already had a basis and which had to wait until the patient was seen. The 500 or more pounds of fresh wild boar heart and rohuangting that Zhao Zhanshan needed remained a difficult problem. Sun Gawei could only adjust the current prescription to suit him better. It couldn't conjure back serious damage out of nothing. This exchange also made it impossible for Dr. Sun to sum up Li Qingshan as a charlatan anymore. A charlatan would promise everything, whereas Li Qingshan had drawn a clear line between temporary pain relief, the full course of treatment, and Zhao Zhanshan's unknown risks. By the time they came out of the clinic, the township government had opened. The household split procedure was far simpler than the quarreling back in the village. With the house deed, the identities, and old man Li himself all present, the staff split Li Sankuei's family out according to the application. The independent registrations for Li Qingshan and Lu Guoxiang were registered along with it. The specific houseplot matters left to be applied for later according to regulations. As old man Li signed, he still put on the airs of the family patriarch, warning Li Sankuei not to regret it down the line. The hand Li Sankuei held the pen with trembled a little, but he didn't look back. Those few registration papers carried no aroma of meat, nor could they instantly produce grain, but they formally separated the 3rd branch from the old Li family's power structure for the first time in decades. From this moment on, the game Li Qingshan brought down, the money he earned, and the courtyard he'd bought would no longer be reapportioned at a single word from old man Li. Lu Guoxiang setting up her own separate registration was especially crucial. She was not a dependent to be disposed of at her husband's family's whim. Even after her husband's death, she still possessed her own identity. From now on, whether it was staying widowed, remarrying, applying for housing, or being allotted grain rations, the decision should be made by her in person, not by old man Li signing in her place under the 4 words, a wife of the Li family. Li Qingshan didn't explain all this to his family on the spot. He only confirmed that every name and relationship on each page was written correctly. Once a household registration was written wrong, changing it meant running back and forth through the procedures again. The lesson of the Zhao family's house deed had already proven that where paper rights were concerned, any ambiguity could become a loophole for others to exploit. By the time the procedures were done, it was nearly 9 o'clock.